Okay, Gwen, if you want to start the meeting, we're ready. We have a quorum of people that are in attendance.
Gwen's muted.
Gwen, I think you're on mute. If you want to start, you have a quorum. We can go, there we go.
Thank you. Welcome to the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology board meeting. The date is Monday, August 24th, 2020, 1 p.m. to 4:30. I would like to start with board member roll call, please.
This is Kai Stanton, Nevada State Board Treasurer.
It's Anita Douglas, State Board, present.
Board Member Harris, present.
Okay.
Brian Valkazar, present.
Okay. Gwen Bramo, present.
Taylor McCormick, present.
Okay. Any other board members? That's it? Okay, I would like to start with the staff, please.
Gary Landry, Executive Director, present.
Leah Easter, Compliance Coordinator, present.
Andrew Helms, Chief Financial Officer.
Justin Shreve, Deputy Attorney General.
Do we have any other staff, north or south, present?
Adam Higginbotham, Deputy Executive Director.
Maggie Adams, Compliance Specialist.
David
Michelle
Scarpelli,
Fanning,
Inspector.
Michelle Fanning, Inspector.
Rodney Moore, Inspector.
That's it? Thank you. The mission? Okay, am I blank again?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Agenda item number B is the mission statement. The mission of the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of those that obtain cosmetology-related services through the delivery of quality testing, licensing, inspection, and education service that focus on consumer protection. Do we have any comments for agenda item C from the general public? The board will entertain comments from the general public for any item that is or is not published on the agenda and is related to the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology. No action can be taken on this matter unless it is included in the agenda. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any comments from the general public? Do we have any general public on our meeting call today? Okay. Agenda item number D is discussion of board policies and procedures for discussion and or possible action. So the board is to discuss the following: the social media salon job postings. Do you want me to go through them one by one or just say them all?
You don't have to read them all. What you can do, you can take these in any order that you want. So if you want to discuss 1, then discuss 4, then discuss 8, whatever order you want to take them in, you can take them in. You can take them in this order or any order that you want. But as long as you cover them all, that's all you need to do.
Okay. So everybody has the information in front of them. And if there's any recommendation from the board members of where to start first or where you guys would like to start, it really doesn't matter to me as long as we make sure that we cover them all, right?
Correct.
In some form.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is Kai Stanton. Madam President, I would like to actually ask for a permission to, not permission, but to make a motion to have one of the agenda items removed and taken out of place due to the fact that that is what was not stated. I do take full responsibility for not seeing that. I am very diligent in making sure that we're going over the information at with a fine tooth comb and making sure that we're being very, very clear. And unfortunately, that is not what I stated. And so when I am going to request to have that removed, I don't know how that was miscommunicated so drastically there. So I do apologize for not catching that oversight. It should say salary and not per diem. Those are two different subjects and conversations, which also conflicts with that statement. So I'm asking that to be removed off the agenda and also amended for the next agenda so that can be taken care of appropriately in the appropriate statement it was originally made.
Member Stanton, just to confirm, you don't need to make a motion to remove it, but I just wanted to confirm that you're talking about the fiscal policies and procedures one, is that correct?
Yes, especially highlighting the retroactive per diems. That is not what was stated, so I need to have that removed.
Okay, and so your request is to table that for the next meeting and to have that say specifically retroactive salary, correct?
No, sir, that is not correct. It's supposed to have salary, not per diem, so per diem should not be in there at all.
Right, so it should say specifically retroactive salary and not.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for helping with that.
You're welcome. And just to confirm, Board President Bramo, is that okay with you to remove that just for the record? To take
That's okay. I mean, because I don't know, I can't remember exactly what board members would want to, you know, what probably, I know I had a few that I wanted to go through, that was Law Review Committee and some, you know, I can speak on some of those things when the time comes, but that's fine, perfectly fine if that's not what was stated.
Okay, and just for the record, Board President Bramo, if you could just say that then that item is tabled, just for the record.
Okay, so we would like to table it to the next meeting?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, because there was a discretion and maybe in the wording of retroactive per diem, and it should be retroactive salary. I would like to
table the discussion.
Table that discussion and add it to the next agenda.
For the fiscal policies and procedures.
Okay, I would like to have it added to the fiscal policies and procedures for next agenda. Next meeting in September. Okay, so I know that there was a lot of discussion the last meeting, and these were the topics that were like open for needed to be discussed board. So this is the opportunity to make sure that we go through every last one of these if possible. I mean, I'm sure if you've not read it, hopefully if you had already, you had questions, that this is the time to ask the questions or to be able to possibly have things set to be modified or voted on or moved to the next agenda. I just would like for you guys to be a little bit more like proactive, like reading and making sure that you understand everything. And if you have any questions, this is the time. The executive director and the attorney general and Andrew, our chief financial officer, is there to answer those questions. So you want to start with Are we tabling the whole policies and procedures? Or are we going to go into the policies and procedures and then we talk about that next meeting? Or do we table the whole physical policies and procedures because of that?
I think the way that the agenda is written, it says specifically that, so because it says specifically on the per diem, I think that I would recommend moving it to the next meeting.
Okay, so we're going to move the physical policies and procedures to next meeting.
Right, but you can talk about all the other bullet points like this.
Okay, okay, wonderful. Did anyone have any questions on the board best practices?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay,
I don't have questions and statements. I'm hoping that will turn into a motion. So as we're going over the information on the very top, on page 12 where it says position, description of board members, officers, it's clearly highlighting ensuring Nevada State Board of Cosmetology fulfills its mission by planning for the future monitoring operations, evaluating the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology performances. As I go further down, it also highlights on and also facilitating responsibilities of the board, making decisions that protect the interest of the public. And as we further go down, it says advance the mission of Nevada State Board of Cosmetology, manage resources, assess the board's performance, et cetera, et cetera. And so if we look further down where it's talking about determine and monitoring the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology programs and services, I do want to make sure that we all know what those in detail. I see a lot of descriptions here regarding managed resources. We need the description board regarding what resources are those. The review of the performance of board. We need to further have the description of what we're referring to regarding not just the performance and decision makings, but what decisions are we making in detail. There's a lot of things that are very vague here in these manuals. My first question is, when did the board approve these manuals? Because these are not bylaws. Bylaws and manuals are completely different with the foundation and the understanding of the AG manual and how the State Board of Cosmetology conducts themselves solely on the open law meetings of the AG manual. So when we look at the board manual, the employee handbook, the manual for Nevada State Administration, social media policies, etc., how did we come to this conclusion, and what board approved this manual? And I don't further remember seeing any updates or policies that needed to be adopted to the update of these manuals.
The first time this was done was back, probably it was before me. So it was with the previous executive director. And I updated in 2013, got approved in 2014, 2015, 2016, I believe, and 2017. And then from that point forward, each time there was a change to the manual, it was approved. Anytime there's no changes, we typically don't bring it before the board again to approve it. We can bring it anytime you want to have it approved by this board. So you just need to clarify if you have any changes you want to have made. We'll make those changes if the board agrees, and then we'll redo the board manual and have it before you the next board meeting.
And as far as the vending approval, did the board approve within the waiver that was signed for the executive and the deputy executive director to approve all vending, all credit card charges, who holds these, etc.? The board is not within those processes of approvals of any vendors, anything that is spent within that. It has just been approved with appointed officers. So how are vendors seen, and can the board be a part of that process once approved on, with seeing light of other positive things that may affect staff in a positive way, as well as communicating positively to the board of those changes?
The board typically does not get involved in any of the operational approvals. The approvals for any operations are done through a bidding process typically. We'll bid out the job to several people, going with the lowest bid, or in some cases, the state has an approved vendor, like for getting furniture. McAfee's the one who's the state vendor. We get our office furniture and all from McAfee. That's typically how it's done. And that's typically how all the other boards do it also.
Typically, do the other boards have bylaws?
I'm not sure. I don't know of any board, do you know of any board that has bylaws?
I'm aware of one board that has bylaws. I'm not sure. It's up to the discretion of each individual board whether or not to adopt what they call policies and procedures, bylaws, manuals, whatever, internal guidelines.
So I have a question, Board Member Bramo. I have a question. What is the difference between a manual and a bylaw? And bylaws, I don't understand, what's the difference?
In effect, there's really not much of a difference. I mean, it's just something that the board would vote on. It's internal guidelines, if you want to just encompass it all under that.
This is Kai Stanton. I'm sorry, can you clarify that, Justin? Because according to me, there is a huge difference. And one is actually upon expiration, one is not. You cannot adjust that unless it is approved and adopted. So can we communicate that again regarding bylaws versus manuals, as well as the process and the approval of? Because bylaws also house a description and create the governing structure in which those policies are founded. So I just want to be very clear for all board members what we're voting on, because those bylaws give us a directive on not just finances and approval of board and information, but it also is very clear on not just emails, the breakdown. It is a full description of how to function, just in case we are not able to get to anyone. Those bylaws support us legally and backs us up legally from a lot of other things that we may or may not see or may have not pertinent information to, but those bylaws are a great description to make sure that we can follow those. So that kind of leaves it rather open for interpretation, and we want to, you know, close that gap a little bit so that we all can be on the same page.
Fair enough, Member Stanton. My understanding is they're all over the internal workings of the board, right? So board staff and everything like that. The statutes for 644A don't specifically state that you have to have bylaws versus manuals. And so I defer to Executive Director Landry as far as what they're in the past. I don't believe the board has any bylaws in place currently. It has manuals, and the manuals were voted on by the previous boards that give you some general guidance as far as what the board can and can't do, what the board staff can and can't do. Legally, it's just something that helps. Bylaws and manuals help to explain what goes on in the inner workings, and so they're not really law because they're not in statute. But it's something that because the board votes on something, they have to follow it because it's something that's implemented by themselves.
That's very fair. Before we refer to Mr. Landry, the reason I'm talking to you, Justin, is because you are the representative of the AG, and we need to have this direct law information to support what we're saying. We don't want to cloud the narrative of any information. And so although everyone there is extremely knowledgeable, we wanted to make sure we have that supportive law and what we're trying to do to make sure we have clarification, because if the law allows, if the board allows, as well as those that are present, I would like to give an example, if you will. If there's a bylaw into place, and Justin, you say, Kai, I need you to run my office. Here's my card. I need you to get some paper clips. You can only purchase 10 paper clips a month, and you cannot exceed that. Anything exceeding those 10 paper clips a month, you are responsible. That is a clear, direct information. There's description, there's a breakdown, and that also says that I'm accountable for the law that's in front of me. Now, if you hand me this card or information and say, Kai, I need you to purchase me some supplies. I go out and purchase supplies from Europe, from all over the world to make sure I have these supplies in place. If anyone audits this and sees this and says this is rather excessive, who approved this? This is not okay. I am no longer responsible financially for what I spent or what I did because I do not have a description. You, Justin, are responsible for that because you approved for me to utilize that card. So it's very important that we hunker down the information and make it very clear and descriptive for each person, because the accountability lies with those that have signed those documents. And that holds up in the court of law. Ignorance is not an excuse in the court of law. In order to protect our board members for what they're signing and how they're signing things, we need to have things extremely clear. So that's why I had no problems with researching bylaws, manuals, statutes, the breakdown of how we're functioning as a board and what our names are signed to, because we are legally responsible. That's why I'm asking you for your support and your help as a representative of the AG department.
Okay, fair enough. And like I said, there's really nothing in the statutes that defines that. So again, it's up to the board if they want to adopt a bylaw versus a manual. It's totally up to the board. As far as a specific like a fiscal policy, let's say, because there is a CFO, Andrew, I would defer to him as far as the fiscal analysis behind why certain policies are acted the way they are. I can only determine or help you guys as a DAG to say whether or not there's a statute that says yes or no, you can't do that.
Thank you so much, Justin. I would like to speak to the chief advisor, et cetera, but here's the thing. Everyone's hands are tied. No one can make any policy decisions. That is direct of the board. We can talk about it. We can create some level of solutions, which still it's a hamster wheel. We have to have these bylaws in place in order to communicate properly, just as you have explained. I can only communicate to officers, no changes can be made. Thank you.
Just for clarification, Member Stanton, if the board wanted to enact bylaws, I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying they actually could. It would just have to be something that if they wanted to enact an entirety, like a set of bylaws, that we could agendize that. And have someone from board staff draft them up for you if that's what your intent is, to have new bylaws. But we'd have to agendize a specific agenda item that says the board would like to have bylaws, vote on that first, and then after that voting of the bylaws, then you could direct board staff to start drafting bylaws. I'm not saying you can't, it's just, yeah.
So let me ask the question, Gwen Bramo, board member. So you have bylaws to make sure, what I'm kind of understanding now, is it bylaws are for, like, this is the way we run this office, or this is the way we run this organization? Is that what bylaws mean?
Both of them, both bylaws and manuals, help to assist with the functioning of the office. Again, I guess Gary would be the best person because he's operations. I don't know how it runs day to day. But you can have bylaws and manuals. There's nothing that prohibits the board from having bylaws and manuals, or either or.
And we have manuals and policies and procedures. We have a long list of policies and procedures. That is how we operate every day for everything that we do. So we can look at policies and procedures, we can look at manuals, whatever you want to look at, you can look at. We can change whatever needs to be changed, but I don't know that there's a lot of change that needs to be done. It's whatever the board thinks. Okay.
So just to be clear, this is Kai Stanton. Bylaws have to be approved, and that is by law. You cannot waiver from that. That secures board in signing things, directive information, description, a full breakdown. Policy, manuals, and procedures are a lot easier to change, adjust. Description can be very vague. And when you're caught in a situation where you're trying to be very clear about something, it can be very difficult if you don't have that in black and white supported by board. Meaning black and white, meaning by word, verbiage, written down, supported by law, and a clause that does not say the bylaws can expire. There can be a clause in there, so we need to make sure that clause is not in there.
Member Stanton, not to cut off the discussion about the bylaws and the creations of bylaws, I don't see it on the agenda. Were you recommending that we have a discussion as far as creating new bylaws?
I was under the impression we were talking about policy, which encases bylaws, and so I was bringing that up as a question on why we do not have them, and also how is the manual approved when for one, when I reviewed the manual and when we're going over certain things, a lot of information is vague. For example, on the very bottom, all vendor payments are reviewed by the Chief Financial Director and approved by the Deputy Executive Director. Some of those things I think should be reviewed by the board.
Member Stanton, I'm sorry. Can you tell me what page you're looking at?
Right here. I'm sorry, I wrote it down. Let me open it back up for you. I apologize.
Is it, I think it's when we went to the best practices, is it the one, because I'm trying to follow it too, is it the responsibilities of the board?
Yes, and also, let's see, it's under separation of duties. And I believe that's an employee handbook.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that one. No wonder I couldn't find it. Okay, so let's just go, let's do this. Because we started off with the best practices so that we can move along, and then we'll go to the next one. So did any board members have any questions regarding the best practices? And the manual board job descriptions is where we started. Okay, so we can go to the next one.
Yeah, Bremo, I guess my concern is that there was 8 bullet points on this agenda. I'm not sure if, I would recommend not straying away from those 8 bullet points. I'm not sure exactly where, I guess, which one you're talking about.
Well, I thought we were going through, like, you know how I was just kind of going down. I didn't know, you want me just to go across? Because at first I thought I heard there was no reason to read them. So I was just hitting the bullet points to see if there was any questions from any board members before we complete that one.
To be honest with you, President Bremo, I think it would probably be easier if you just went down on the agenda and start with social media salon job postings and then go down from there.
So you want me to go down all of them, all the way down till we get to the end of it?
Yeah, but remember, prior to any discussion, we tabled fiscal policies and procedures. So you'd go over social media salon job postings, board officer member duties, email procedures for board members, AG, and staff, expense sheets that auto-populate, agendas to board members in advance of the 3-day posting, board pack agendas and supplemental materials after meeting date and town hall meeting.
Okay, you don't want me to go under the ones that say board best practice, employee handbook, Nevada administrative manual?
I don't see that on the agenda. I'm not sure if there's a separate agenda that was issued.
No, it's on there.
This is Kai Stanton. I thought we were taking things out of order according to what we wanted to discuss was the previous statements. And I think us going down the line, especially when I tabled the fiscal year policies, dropped us down to going over the manuals individually.
If I may, board members, I think what you're looking at, President Bremo, is the titles of the documents that discuss these items. So in your board pack, if you were to look on the side and it says board best practices, those are what it's pulled from. So the job description is pulled from the employee handbook.
That's what I thought.
Right, so the subject is on the agenda. The backup documentation has those titles that I think you're referring to.
Oh, see, all mine is on one page.
Okay. So I think what Deputy Attorney General Taruk is saying, let's look at social media salon job postings and see if there are any changes that we want to make to that. Because anything that's on your board pack, that's the backup documentation where these pages
Right.
have been pulled from,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Well, because that's how I thought we were doing it. I thought we were talking about, because they said board to discuss the following. Okay, so if I discuss social media, do I go down and click on the social media policy to see if we need to change anything?
Exactly.
Okay, I can start there. I just didn't know where to start. That's why when they said don't read them all, we didn't have to because everybody had it. I just started clicking on them because I thought this is what the part that we were going to be looking at to review. Am I on the right page?
Yes, you're on the right page. It's just that each one of those items is a topic to review. You can't review everything in the manual. You've got to review the things that are specified here, because that's the only thing that the board said they wanted to discuss last meeting.
Okay, so I go to social media salon job posting. I'm going to go to social media policy.
Correct.
Okay, so now we're looking at the social media policy.
And look on item E2. That's job postings. If you want to change something there or do something with it, that's what we need to know.
This is Kai Stanton. I do have a change regarding the social media policy. The job description and approval, even though it states that the Nevada State Board does not support any particular company, X, Y, and Z. I don't believe that needs to be there. If we don't support it, I don't believe that we need to advertise that. And it is only one salon, certain ones that can be problematic and also viewed as a specialty favor. So I do think we need to have that removed altogether regarding job postings from any other establishments, salons, etc.
But Gwen Bramo, board member, if we're going to remove that, we probably still should have something somewhere. Like if somebody's looking for employment, how do we identify which salons that we allow to post, or do we just have like a posting page by itself? So and anybody can post to it, because it is kind of a good resource if somebody's looking for a licensee, especially if they're not fresh out of school, looking for, to hire people. So is there any way we can have like maybe a special page where maybe it rotates, or, well, how many people contact the state board looking for licensees?
To be honest with you, this is Kai Stanton, I apologize. What I'm reviewing is only one. And the problem with that is not everyone reads details. And so if I am looking for a job, I will automatically assume Nevada State Board is supporting this establishment. And if that establishment does not turn out to be as amazing as the expectation or what I'm appearing to be, I will be more than happy to blame the board for the support of this process and to further say that my salon can never receive that same type of response. You only pick X, Y, and Z. Now, if it was open and everyone is able to do that, okay, I may or may not see that. But here's the other thing. The public is also have established their own agendas regarding social media, and they all have that. And because they are also utilizing that and they have that in communication, I don't see any reason why we should be in the middle of any legal issue or conversation of regarding something that is already established by public. And that appears to be very successful, and there's multiple of those. So that's one thing we can take off of our plate that is not necessary and relieve more time for staff to focus on the agendas.
Just to let you know, Treasurer Stanton, there is no vetting or guidance or anything. These are people who go to the website, fill that out, and gets posted on our Facebook page. That's it. No review of it, there's no anything. So that anyone who says that we support them, we say right in the thing, we don't support any of these. These are provided for informational purposes only. So I don't think anyone's going to get any confusion about that, although they could. The job postings are free to the salons. They can post as many as they want. They can post as often as they want. We don't have any restrictions of that. If the board wants to take that off completely, we take it off. It's no problem. We just did that as a service to the salons. If you don't want to have a service to the salons, we'll take it off. And not you, the board has voted.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. I think we do want to service the public within a timely manner, utilizing our time in a good manner, and I do believe that the public has that. So I don't think that we're doing the community an injustice by taking that off. I think, however, we are saying that we need to focus our time on things that it can be more effective, and we want to make sure that we are supporting the community with information laws, pushing to narrative of safety and understanding, and really making sure that we're honing in on those. So because there's so many avenues for that, and because we don't have a specialty license, we don't have anything to really support this, I really don't see any necessity to further give time to that, especially if the board does not support it. I mean, if the staff and Nevada State is not saying, we are saying these salons are amazing, I don't see any reason why to support something that already exists through the community.
It doesn't matter to me which way. If we're just allowing them to post it on the board's Facebook page, is that what I'm hearing? And anybody can post on the Facebook page?
That is correct.
Brian Baltasar. So as I'm going through the policy, it looks like they have a process. So basically they fill out a template. Staff verifies that, the business is not in compliant or out of compliance in any way before that template is posted. I mean, just optically, I can understand and do see the point that is being made by Board Member Stanton is that, maybe some of the other businesses that are not as well versed or as familiar with the board website, even though the resource is available to them, maybe the knowledge of that resource is not widespread. And so you'll perhaps see certain businesses use that resource or access that resource more than others, which causes it to look like we're almost, we're not advocating on behalf of that business, but because that business is the business that knows that we do this, it can appear to be
right,
that
okay.
we are supporting it. So I would, just optically, I would actually vote to remove that if it's not being as widely used. I would support removing.
Well, I have to go on the page to see. I should have looked to see. So what you guys are saying, what you're seeing is the same entities all the time?
Right, I believe that's what's being said.
Okay, I don't have a problem. I mean, is this something that we vote on? Do we vote on this, or we don't have to vote on it? We can just say we can remove it.
Board member,
Done.
if I may speak, I have a position that differs differs slightly. I would like to see it stay for the time being, because the businesses that have taken the time to fill that out don't have a reason why it's just being taken down. If it's a resource that's available, then it should be a resource that's available. If you feel more people need to know that that's an option, then maybe we should explore that altogether before removing it, because this is this is an option and we want to give them as many options. So I think taking it away altogether just doesn't really serve our licensees the best. That's just my position.
So maybe we can find a way, board member, Bramo, we can find a way to put it out there to let them know that, because I didn't know it was a resource like that either. I mean, because I never went to look at it. I don't like just I don't do a whole lot of just Facebook anyway. When I do, I don't just think about, let's go to the state board's website to see what's actually there, because we kind of keep in touch with that. So I wasn't aware of it either. So I'm sure it's probably not a lot of businesses that's aware of it. And I could see how the same ones are utilizing it, which makes sense. I do understand. I hate to take away anything from anybody, because our position is to be able to get exposure to the businesses that have to pay for these licenses as well. But we still have to make sure that if we're not going to find a way for all businesses, then we probably should vote to remove it. So I'm not quite sure how that happens. So if that could be a discussion, and then we can move on from this one, because I think we just need to figure out how everybody knows that it's a resource. You know, that's gonna be more work for the staff to figure out how you get it out there to people that it's a resource. Because I'm sure people don't know it's a resource. So the ones that do know it's a resource, yeah, I could see, I would utilize it as well. You know, if I knew it was a resource and it's going to help boost business, because I mean, everybody needs a boost in business, especially right now.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
So I guess just what happens next then, Justin? Give us some guidance, because I don't know that I think it should be taken off completely. And I know that we're all kind of saying the same thing, but it is something that they have taken the time to do. It is social media. That is what we're going to rely on heavily moving into. So I don't want to see it go, but what do we need to do? Like, can we push it to another? Can we break it up and push it to talk about this further another time? Or we have to decide whether to take it down right now?
Member McCormick, you don't have to decide to take it down now. Again, the board can table it if it would like to for a future date. Another option would be you guys could direct the board staff to maybe find a way to start researching to find a way to, I guess, disseminate the information that this posting board is out there. So that way, maybe you could give the board until the next meeting or something to give a presentation about how, hey, this is how we can disseminate the information that is out there, and then decide what to do from there. There's just, I guess, different options for you.
This is Kai Stanton. I just want to be clear regarding time frame. So doing this will accumulate more time from staff to make sure that we're communicating to the public all avenues and all areas that is available to them they can utilize as a resource. So board can board can vote on whether or not we want to do that. Am I correct?
That's correct. You have the option, or you have the option of just removal or keeping it.
But we can always, even if we remove it, we can always bring that back to the table and have extensive information on this later on. Even if we remove this, we can always bring this back later. But for money, time's sake, etc., this can be an option because it will create time, money to develop that, correct?
That's correct. You can remove it at this point. You can always ask for an agenda item to have the policy updated again, if that's what you wanted to bring it back. It just has to be agendized again.
Gwen Bramo, a board member. I think my only concern about it is that we have so many things that we keep putting off and we keep bringing back, but we bring them back without a solution. And that's what we got to kind of narrow down, which is good that we starting to say, okay, we're going to have this meeting and this is going to be moved and this is what's going to happen, so that we won't keep letting these things just kind of slip away. I would love to see it stay, but I would love to see, my personal opinion, if the staff could figure out a way by the next meeting so that we can have a plan set forth of how everybody's going to find out, or we decide we keep it or we don't keep it. But it's there, and if it's a resource, it's unfortunate it's the same people taking advantage of the same resource. And I didn't know it was that obvious. You know, it could look like kind of like favoritism. I'm not sure, I haven't seen it, but that's kind of what I'm hearing. But if it's a resource, why are we going to get rid of a resource if we can figure out a way how to utilize a resource where everybody has the same opportunity? I think this is kind of the problem with the resources, what it sounds like. Am I right?
Yes, that is correct. I am an advocate for resources. However, I want to make sure that those resources are understood across the board. If I notice that it is seeming collectively not so much broad for everyone, I will request for that to be removed until we can have further data and information on what we need to do. If we can have a solution on making this information brought across the board, everyone can take part in this, I'm 110% on board. The last thing I want to do is set up any type of favoritism or not bringing that to the table with an understanding of what's going on without a solution. So if we have a solution, I'm completely on board.
Okay, so.
Board members, if I may, Maggie Adams, compliance specialist. We're talking about fewer than 5 posts a month. We are talking about if somebody contacts us, reaches out to us, and they speak Vietnamese or they speak Spanish, they're referred to staff who can communicate with them and assist them in getting their postings on. It is by order of receipt. So we do post everything that we get. We posted a announcement where to find it on our website, where to post, and we got 2 job postings out of that. So people are watching, we're constantly promoting our social media pages. It is an expanding process. So personally, I think it is valuable for both licensees and salon owners to have a central location where they can post freely. And by that, I mean without having to pay for it. Opportunity to get and give work. So I would, if there are some changes you want to see made, I think that would be great. But as a licensee in another area, it would be great if those resources were available overall.
Okay.
Brian Baltazar, and I understand what's being said, and I greatly appreciate community resources. I mean, that's predominantly what I do professionally, is helping people access different resources. But with that being said, I also see repeat individuals accessing certain resources repeatedly. And so you do see a concentration of those resources being allocated to a select few. It's really hard to raise the visibility of a program and that it's available. I wouldn't even know how you would begin to increase visibility. And honestly, I don't know if it's worth putting in more work to increase that visibility, especially if it's, less than, I don't know what you said, 5 posts a month. It doesn't seem like it's being accessed that frequently. If we could determine if we can come up with a way to increase visibility and that we're going to get more people to participate, that'd be great. I just don't see how I don't see how we can gather that data. And if we do, I mean, I would prefer, and again, it looks like we're favoring a business over another. That's how I would interpret that. being a public member and looking at this information, if, in fact, the first time I saw a posting about a job, I thought we were advocating on behalf of this job's or this business's behalf. After further reading it, yes, you do understand that the board is not advocating on behalf of this business or in the best interest of this business, but at first sight, it does look like that. And that is what I'm concerned about, is that we get stuck in a quagmire where people are now making assumptions that we support these businesses over those. So until we're able to communicate how we're going to be able to increase the visibility, I would rather suspend that altogether. I just see it as a huge liability if we're not properly expanding its usage.
Board Member McCormick, oh, sorry. Board Member McCormick, I agree with you too, Brian, that we need to streamline it. Is there a time limit on the postings? Maybe Maggie could speak to this. Is there a time limit? Like once someone makes a posting, is it possible to then just say, you can have this up for 30 days. You can't repeat the same posting. You can't, is that possible so that we don't take it away altogether or keep seeing the same people all the time?
Board Member McCormick, actually, I'm not sure. I can look into that.
And sorry, this is Justin, Deputy Attorney General. Just to let the board know, if that's something that the board was interested in creating for a policy, you guys can definitely put that in there. If you want a time limit as far as postings and stuff for these individuals who utilize the service.
I like the fact that they can only utilize it for a period of time, but I would still like us to figure out a way. So could we do this? This is just my suggestion, board members. If we could maybe allow it to stay up till next month board meeting, giving staff maybe some leeway to help us figure out how other licensees could access the information, to be able to maybe rotate some postings or find out more information, and then that way we won't have the same businesses for periods of time. As you scroll down, I can kind of see it. I'm not quite sure. I just hate to take a resource down without a solution. But I do agree that there needs to be a time frame set. So what are you guys recommending that we do so that we can move forward to the next one?
This is Kai Stanton. I would just like a solution on the bottom line. Solution is, how do we make this information broad enough that everyone understands that it's there? I mean, board members have even said they didn't even know this was a resource. So that's the question. How do we make this open so everyone knows the resources that they have? And how do we do this without bleeding out finances, resources, and time?
Madam President, this is Deputy Director Adam Higginbotham. We could send out an email notification to all salons, which would be a very minimal cost at pennies per email, if even a penny. We could send out a notification that we have this feature along with a little infographic communicating, hey, this is how you can fill out this form, and we can get that done.
Okay, another question too. Thank you, Deputy Hickenbach. Let me ask this question. Can we also, while we're sending out this email to let all the licensees know that they're posting and it has to be their business and things like that, that we have like some criteria to it? Or is it just for anybody that wanna, or it's for businesses, right?
That's correct. It's for salons only.
Yeah, for salons only. Okay, so for salon owners to know, and then maybe we can have a time frame that if you post for 1 month, you can maybe post so we won't have so many of them, that we can rotate their posting. They post one time, then it's gonna last you all month. You gotta fill out a new form to get posted again. Is that too much work?
I believe that's the current process.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's the
But-
same
but
people
I'll-
filling it every month.
But I need to confirm that statement.
So if we could do that, I think that I think it would work. I think it would be a win-win situation for us all if all the licensee salon establishments get an email blast that we offer this resource to our community of businesses. And then you have to fill out a form. You can only do it once a month. And then that'll eliminate the people that's filling out the form every week.
Correct. The origins from this, Madam President, Adam Higginbotham, Deputy Director, for the record. The origins of this came to help individuals that had completed the test. We directed them to the Facebook page so they could find individuals that had reached out to us for a job posting. So we directed students or new licensees to the site, and it was to get participation on social media, so we would have individuals to communicate information to. And it was
Well,
to
it's good
promote
to know
awareness
too
of
how
the
many
salon.
salons that still hiring people, you know? So there's a lot of salons that's probably not hiring as much right now, and they do need some help. And I think it's a good resource, but I think it's should be a good resource for all.
Would you like the, Madam President, for the record, Deputy Director Adam Higginbotham, is this email notification to salons something the board wants to entertain to go out now? Or
What do
do
you
they
think,
wanna wait
board
for the
members?
next
I
board
think
meeting?
the email to the salons is a good one. And then when we come back for a follow-up for the next board meeting, we can just tailor how often that they can actually do it. Then we can stop the ones from overdoing it, and we won't, everybody can have their time, maybe one time. And then you did it one time, you don't get to do it every week. We don't get to see your post every 4, 5, 6 slides. So I think that will be fair. If I could take the time to fill out a form and say I'm looking for employees and do it every month, that's a good resource for me. So can you find out from us, Deputy, to find out how long that this can last and how often they can have these postings? So we
yes, if you all ask me at the end of the meeting, I may be able to have an answer for you.
Okay, I like that.
So I would beg to question, so what is going to be the financial impact of us trying to raise the visibility of this resource? Because I also don't want us to invest into something that is just not going to increase participation. And we should also know, being fiscally responsible, especially during this economic timeframe, we should really be mindful of what it is that the organization itself is allocating its funds to, because if it's already a program that is barely afloat, I don't believe in throwing additional resources into something that is not successful to begin with. Now, I can't say this resource is successful or not, because I don't have enough data to advocate either way, but I just don't see it being used widely enough to justify throwing money at it. But I'm more than happy to see what the financial impact is going to be if we're going to be doing this on a monthly basis. So we're sending an email blast now on a monthly basis. So that's like an additional cost that we're going to incur. Like, it just, to me, it gets to be a slippery slope. But finances are also something that we should be looking at, especially now.
Okay, so board, would we like to table this to the next meeting, and then or at the end of the meeting when our deputy director can give us that information of how it could be done and what it would cost?
This is Kai Stanton. I would like to make a motion to have that for the end of the meeting.
Members,
Okay.
you don't need to have that motion. We could just continue on and just President Bramo can just recall the matter when Mr. Higginbotham has that information for you guys.
Okay, so board members, at the end of the meeting, our deputy director should have some information, and that would help assist us on the discussion that we're having now with the job postings, the social media policy with job postings. So we're going to table that to the end of this meeting. We're going to go to the next agenda item, which is board office and member duties. Was there anything in that policy that we would like to see different far as the officers and board members' positions?
This is Kai Stanton. I would like to talk about the segregation of duties, internal controls, with the statement of, in paragraph 2, the president and secretary treasurer are granted access to review transactions. Periodically, I would like that changed to transactions, and questionable reason can be presented to the board for further approval.
Fiscal policies and procedures.
Okay, so where are we now? Because I thought we were right here. I'm looking at, are we at the position descriptions for board members and officers?
Yes, I think it's also, if I follow correctly, it's under the manual and it's breaking down officer duties. I think it's the last one, as ordered by the board, review financial statements for the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology. Wait, do I follow?
I will pull this up.
Are we on the same document, you guys?
Yes, it's taking a second for me to pull up my pad. I apologize. I'm having a lot of glitching over in the area that I'm in. We're actually going over the employee handbook, and we were talking about the description for employee.
Okay, but we're not there yet, you guys, remember?
Are we still on board best practices?
I just asked, did anybody have any questions so we can move on, because I had jumped to that one first. And I had
I apologize. I thought we were done with that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, any other questions from any other board members on best practices?
Best practice is not a topic. The topics are social media, salon job postings, board officer, member duties, email procedures. Those are the topics. The other things are the supporting documents that give you the support and tell you where these things are defined.
So this is Kai Stanton, I apologize. When we're talking about board office member duties, that's what I'm referring to when I'm making that statement of separation of duties, when we're breaking that down. And that would be in the employee handbook, and not necessarily we're going per book. We're going along the what the agenda is. Am I correct? So when I'm communicating board office member duties, it's not necessarily going book per book. It's only where it's found.
Correct.
So I'm talking about the information regarding the, that's just where to find it, separation of duties. That is not the statement made.
When you talk about a paragraph and about a sentence that you want to talk about, you need to tell them which book is it from and what page is it on, because they're all numbered. So we need to know what number of page and what book it's on.
Okay, so let me bring this back in so we can all have a clear understanding of where we are. Okay, so we're at the agenda item, board officer and member duties, right?
Correct.
So when I click on, so where am I going to click on for that? Best practice, right? Or do I click on it at the employee's handbook?
The employee handbook would be one place you click on.
I see what you're saying, President Bramo. Yeah, so board best practices, manual, board job descriptions. That does appear to have a description as far as it goes. I was handed a paper copy of it, so it didn't have the description of board best practices manual, board job description, so that's where the confusion lies. I think to alleviate some of the confusion, there's page numbers on the bottom of each of the pages.
I see it now. So, but I just didn't know we were in the handbook yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so if you guys could just say page whatever, so.
Okay.
You know, what page.
So Board Member Stanton, can you get us clear so everybody can know now? We can go, I see the pages now, 90 through 136. So what page are we on now?
Thank you, Vice President. I apologize. I'm looking at page, very top.
And
The first page, Nevada State, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. And also when you're giving the page number, if you could give the like bolded name of the title on the top of the page, that'd be also beneficial as well.
So we're looking at officers' responsibilities and duties. Page 93, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It's on page 12, it's on page 13, it's on page 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, and 95. So one of those,
Okay.
multiple of those have information.
So I gotta be honest, this is one of the reasons why I would support bylaws, is because we're flipping back through different manuals and it's getting really confusing. I'll be honest, every organization I've been part of has bylaws. And if we could just, it just seems really cluttered and really fragmented when we're looking at different manuals. I think bylaws would streamline this process a lot better.
This is Kai Stanton. I have all my bullets and my notes noted. I do apologize. I was under the impression when I received the agenda, that's how we were going down each one, just to keep some level of understanding and making sure that we all can follow along. So if you give me just 1 second, I'll be more than happy to add the numbers to the pages of what I'm referring to regarding the segregation of duties. And for those that have supported this manual and made this manual accordingly, which is amazing. So maybe you can also help me with that as far as where that would be. Regarding the President, Secretary, Treasurer are granted bank access to review transactions, and questionable reasons can be presented to the board further is what I would like to add, which you can find in the fiscal policies and procedures, but you can also see that in detail regarding the board officer and member duties. Those are all hand in hand, and that breakdown is in both manuals, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to have to cover one and then turn around and cover that exact same thing on a different manual as well.
So we're discussing adopting that policy to be included directly under board officer responsibilities?
Yes, I would like to add and adopt some regulation so that it can go into effect immediately. But I was under the impression of a different. So I just want to make sure that I'm accurately directing the board as well as staff to what I'm referring to on that particular page so it does not get lost in the shuffle. I'm looking at the number up right now. It shouldn't take much longer.
So can we go to the next one while you guys are waiting on that one, or you're almost done?
Thank you, President. I will be more than happy to move forward in coming back to those, just so that I can have the adequate information to make sure that everyone can follow along.
Okay. Okay, so let's go on to the, while you're still looking for that, we're gonna go to email procedures for board members, AG, and staff. So there was concern with the board about those particular issues or topics. Everybody's clear on the email procedure for board members or the AG and staff. And I do have a comment. I guess it's a comment for you, Justin, or Director Landry, whoever can want to answer it. I know that when we have emails, and we've had emails with other board members on the email, or the other board members CC'd on the emails or whatever, if it's not talking about that current agenda item coming, is that still talking to board members if they're not talking about something that's on the agenda?
To answer your question, yes. So the open meeting law says that you can't have any serial communication over, let me just pull up the language for it.
I can't see you, Justin.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Oh, okay. All I can see, I'm like, you don't want to talk to me. You don't want to see me.
I don't have access to it. Let me see. Hold on one second. So any communication that's between several of the board members that is dealing with anything that's under the supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power of the board, you can't talk about that even in emails, even if it's not on an agenda item, because it's under your guys' direction. You can't do it because you might violate the OML.
But if it's not about a meeting, if it's about something that, I'm gonna just give it for example, like when if we say that we were gonna talk about something and we needed to make sure we reiterated with our executive director, and then I'm CC'd on the email, because that's what just to remind us, this is what we're supposed to talk to him about. That's not talking about, how's that talking about something that was already, that's been voted on, haven't been voted on, because there's nothing that's going to be voted on.
It's still a topic that the board could potentially vote on. That's the key. That's what you have to kind of keep in your mind is, if it's something that the board can take action on, then you probably shouldn't have different board members on that email as well. It's not under 644A. It's actually under the open meeting law. That's where the violation may occur.
Okay. And then with contacting you, so I know when we contact you, that's costing money. Right?
That's correct. It doesn't go in my pocket directly, but yes, it costs the agency money to.
So what do you recommend when there's like a miscommunication and a board member wants to reach out to you for clarification? What is your recommendation?
So my understanding is in one of the manuals, I think it's the, hold on one second, let me just pull it up for you guys.
While you're pulling that up, I just really quickly want to ask, so anytime we access your services or communicate with you, that is costing the board money?
So I work on a billable hour, so I have to input my time daily as far as what I do. And so I have to keep track of all the stuff that I do. I have eight or nine other boards, but I keep track of it. I have a billable rate that every time I receive any correspondence, if I have to respond to correspondence, if I have a research project, I have to put that down and it's multiplied by the billable hour.
Okay. Not that I wouldn't want you to get paid, because I'm sure, you know, you've done a lot to get to where you are. I was unaware of that. And so moving forward, and okay, but I guess I should table this for fiscal policy, because I think it should be somewhere. I think that should be noted, because I had no idea that all these email correspondences or calls or et cetera, that we are tacking on a bill for the board. That is kind of alarming that I did not know that.
Board members, if you guys look at the best practice guide, it was provided to you guys in training. And I believe that board staff could provide it to you again if you need a copy of it. But just for reference, and we could probably talk about it a little bit more later down the road, just for your references, pages 21 and 22 of that best practices manual, there's a header called legal issues. And then on page 22, the first bullet point on that says all communications with the Nevada Attorney General's office shall be through the executive director and or the board president. I guess if there's a question, you guys could go through the board president to contact me or the executive director to go through me. Again, but because you guys are members of the board, you guys could also go directly towards me. And the manual does state though that you should probably go before the board president or the ED to contact the AG's office. And that might help streamline some of the costs that are incurred by the board from the AG's office.
And what you also have to keep in mind, if someone needs an answer, that'll be someone communicating with Gwen or whoever the president is, and Gwen would contact the DAG. If there are two people that need to talk, now you're one short of a quorum, and that starts getting into open meeting law. So it needs to be one-on-one with a board member to Gwen. Gwen talks to the DAG. That's the way it goes. Not three people talking to Gwen. You now have a quorum. You just broke the open meeting law. And Justin would have to, I don't know if you have to report it or not, but would break the open meeting law.
That's correct. It would be a violation of the open meeting law.
Okay. I think that clears up a little bit for me.
Sure.
Any other board member have a discussion on that?
And again, I guess if the board wanted to adjust that policy as far as who may or may not contact the AG's office, that could be on something that you guys could discuss as far as changing that policy.
When we talk about email,
Okay, say that, so let's make that clear. Then that way we can move forward with this one, but let's just get a clear understanding of exactly what was just said, because I mean, it's like almost like the kids, you tell them one thing and they go down the line, and I'm gonna say something different.
Sure. So your current policy and your best practices manual, right, says that all communications with the AG's office goes through the board president or the ED or Gary. And so if you guys wanted to open it up to all the board members, just for clarity's sake, and so it's written down, you guys could vote and say, hey, instead of just the president and Gary contacting the AG's office, let's open up the policy that says any board member can contact the AG's office. That's an option for you guys. But like Ryan, member Balthazar said, that would be racking up some additional costs if I get phone calls from 7 board members plus the executive director.
Right, and I would love for everyone to be able to contact you, and my position probably would have been for that until I just learned that we are going to be billed for every communication. That is not really fiscally responsible in a time where we're facing an economic crisis. So we really should look at that very closely. I hate to.
Well, I think it's a channel or basically to get to our attorney general. So if board members feel like that the executive director Landry has not satisfied, but I think it should go with an understanding to him first. And I guess Justin really can't just say he's not going to respond to you, because he will, but we have to know that it's costing money. But I think it should go through Executive Director Landry or the chain of command first. Am I right?
That's what your manual says.
Okay.
So it's my understanding that even if Justin doesn't respond, the mere fact that he receives a communication from us and he spends time on either listening to that voicemail, reading that text message, or reading that email, even that in itself is billable. So am I correct, Justin?
That is correct, Member Baltazar. The reason why I have to bill it is because I have to review it just to make sure that whether it warrants a legal response or not. And if it's something that the executive director or his administrative staff could handle.
Gotcha.
Board
So
Member Mo. Okay, go right ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh, no, I was just going to say you may see less emails from me, Justin.
Let me just ask this question. I just want to clarify so we can all be on the same accord. I do feel like that it should go through the chain of command, and that's how it should be with any operation. So if we have an issue or a concern, then the first email should possibly go to Executive Director Landry. If it doesn't go to Executive Director Landry and we get the results that we feel as board members that we're not getting, is there any way at that time it goes directly to Justin? Because Justin's going to relay the information anyway to Director Landry. So Justin's going to give it to you. I don't see a problem contacting Justin if you're not getting any results. I do have a problem contacting Justin if Executive Landry doesn't know.
And you should be able to, they can contact me or they can contact you. Those are the two that can talk to the DAG. So either they get it through me and I go there, or they send it to you and you go to the DAG.
Okay.
Either of those works. But anything other than that, we should probably frown on, because that's going to run up costs.
Okay.
So I think to also clarify that point, President Bramo, I think the reason why that might have been in place for the policy is the executive director will probably be in the best position whether or not to determine if that's an administrative issue that he could handle versus if it's a legal matter that the Attorney General would need to provide his response on.
So if it's a legal matter, that's something different.
Yeah. So if it's a question about operations or how to handle, I don't know, like licensing, that's not really probably a legal matter that I would have to get involved in. But if I got an email about it, like I said, I'd have to review it and bill it just because I had to review it. But unfortunately, again, in that instance, you guys wouldn't have had to incur that billing cost if it went through executive director. Again, if there's an issue where you're not getting your legal responses, you guys can always reach out to me, but that should be your first step, is to go through the chain of command like you put.
Okay. Okay. Any board members have any questions about that?
This is Kai Stanton. If the executive director at that time, who's the executive director and the president at that time, if he's not available, I just want to make sure that it is very clear to communicate to your president. Correct?
That's correct. As long as it's a one-on-one and there's no quorum or a serial quorum, then you won't be breaking open meeting law.
Thank you.
And I just want to make clear one last thing when you talk about email procedures of the board can only write to the executive director or the president individually. You can't write with 2 people knowing, 3 people knowing, more than that getting involved. The members, the staff members can write to anyone and receive emails from anyone. The DAG can write to anyone and receive any emails from anyone, mostly because we do not vote. The board votes on everything, and that's the power that you control. You vote on everything that we do. So we don't vote, so we're not held under the same critical criteria of not communicating with other people. We can communicate with anyone we want to. You're the ones who are committed to only communicating to the president, and that's it.
But just to clarify that as well, we can't go, let's say that member Stanton reached out to me and told me something, I can't go to 3 other board members, like member Baltazar, member Tia Luttrell, or President Bramo, because then it would be like I'm the middleman. I can't serve as the middleman. Gary can't serve as the middleman. It just has to be you and me, and that's it. There can't be like a spread of serial communication.
I think that's understood.
That is understood. And so I'm so glad you made that statement. Here's where it's a little problematic. When there is a email received on a correspondent to where a lot of board members were not privy to, it is a confusing email when we're receiving a response to something they know nothing about prior to, or what the process was or the statement and why. So while we're receiving emails and we're reading them, sometimes it can lead to further questions and confusion because we're not understanding how did we get here? Why is this generalized? Why are we having redundance of conversation? What is going on? So we need to be able to have something in place so that there can be some clarification and not a change of narrative or a filter through when we're receiving response. A lot of board members are responding to emails that they are receiving and not reaching out. I think a lot of times board members are adding and attaching staff to it to have awareness of the conversation. So there's some transparency there. If it's led or misunderstood to something different, I can understand that. But given the information that we just received in training in June, on the end of June, just now implementing this information, I think it's very important that we do have some sort of something into place to delete that confusion. And that has happened. So I think that's where you're getting that. And I think because we have received that wonderful training in which you explained and stated in June, it will be a lot easier as the staff has requested patience, so is board, to implement things that we have just received. Some of that information that you're referring to in the manual, yes, we did receive that. In full detail, are we trying to understand that process? Absolutely, and I think that's partly why we're here today, to make sure that that confusion can stop, because I know that every single one of us want to be within compliance with the law. So thank you.
And also a point of clarification, because I don't know if I heard 2 different statements. Because Justin, you said something about a quorum, that we cannot communicate if there's a quorum. Gary, you just clarified that we should be communicating on an individual basis. I got lost somewhere in between both of that. So Justin, are you referring to physical communication? So just throwing out an example, if I email the 3 officers and we 3 as the officers compose less than a quorum, does that mean I'm able to email the 3 of us because we do not constitute a quorum? Or am I not meant to email like that? I really just got stuck in between both of your points.
Sure. So as long as there's no quorum, then there's no meeting, right? The issue with, and it doesn't have to deal, it doesn't matter if it's physical or electronic, right? So if you guys do it via email and 3 of the members talk about it amongst themselves, there's obviously no quorum. The issue though is that if one of you guys goes out to another member, then now there's 4 of you guys talking about it. And that would break your OML quorum issue. So to avoid that entirely, that's why the recommendation is not to do that.
Okay, but I just want to make sure. So legally, less than a quorum is okay, but it's recommended that we commute on an individual basis to avoid any potential quorum.
That's
Is
correct.
that what I'm understanding?
That's correct, because as the training went on, so open meeting law deals with public meetings and public meetings forums. So if there's no forum, there's no public meeting. But yes, you are correct in your understanding.
So back to then the agenda item, email procedures for board members, AG and staff. I guess the email.
Member Baltazar, I think you're breaking up. I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, so going back to the agenda item, because I forgot about it for a moment, email procedures for board members, AG and staff. So just point of clarification, the current policies say to communicate through your board president and or the executive director before trying to communicate with the deputy attorney general. That's one part of the policy I'm understanding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then another part of the policy that I'm understanding, email procedures for board members, amongst board members, is that no communication can be had if you are emailing more than a quorum. Is that correct?
That is partially correct. So it's not a policy, it's actual statute 241.
Okay, statute. So, but am I, is
That's correct. But that is correct. But it is correct, yeah.
And then the same applies to staff. The board cannot communicate as a group to individual staff members, but we're to communicate through the executive director, or are individual board members allowed to communicate with individual staff? I don't know
That is a question for the executive director. I'm not sure if that's outlined in the policy.
If you need something at a higher level, you can contact me and I'll be happy to answer it. If it's in an operational level, just call it through the regular switchboard and get to the person who has the answer. I don't have all the answers on the daily operations. We're doing the daily operations do. So if you need something on a daily operation basis, you can contact them. Otherwise, you can contact me. Individually, you can contact anyone as a public member, as a licensee, as a board member. It doesn't matter. Anyone can contact anyone as long as it's an individual. You don't have two or more on the call. Two or more board members.
Okay. I think I'm following. I feel like I need a diagram.
This all came about because the previous boards from years back had problems where they'd have two people communicating, and each one of those would go communicate with someone else. That had an open meeting law violation, and that's not good. I didn't write the law. I didn't create the open meeting law, but we follow open meeting law. And if board members break that, whether intentionally, that becomes an ethics concern.
So just to segue off of that, are we reported every time that we make a violation? Are we like collecting these imaginary citations? How does that work out?
You only report it when we know definitely that there's been a violation. It would have to be pretty serious, an intentional violation that you were communicating amongst each other in a quorum. I don't have any proof of that in my files, but if you did communicate in a quorum and you violated the law, you may want to self-admit it to the ethics board and tell them you're sorry and you're not going to do it again, or you may just keep it silent.
Okay.
I just think everybody's clear now, moving forward, that if we have more than one on a email, when we're emailing, we just have to be able to make sure we just email one at a time if there's any information that's requested or required or commented or something that I maybe have to reach out to Executive Landry, or you guys can reach out to him directly yourselves. And then at that point, he can reach out to Justin, or I can reach out to Justin to maybe possibly assist. But I think it should go through, I guess, the chain of command and it kind of keeps it down. Now we know that Justin's charges by the every half an hour, quarter hour.
Sorry, guys.
And don't forget, it's not communicating from you to one board member, that same information to another board member, same information to another board member. It's you and one board member. That's the communication.
Right. Right. Okay, I think that's clear.
And just confirm, was there any changes, board member president, that you wanted to have on the email?
Pardon?
Just wanted to confirm that if there was any email procedure changes to that.
Right. Is there any changes to the email procedure for board members, AG, and staff?
Maybe a point of clarification to include in there would be to insert that any communication with the Deputy Attorney General or the Attorney General's office will and can result in billable hours. I think that should be there in bold even, because it's super important. And also a point of clarification, the quorum thing. I think those should be included in email procedures just to prevent anyone from being able, or to even going even further than that, because I honestly was completely unaware.
This is Kai Stanton. I would like to support that statement. I do think it's very important, as we are welcoming new members, that they have that at their fingertips and information of any kind to allow them to communicate effectively.
One point of recommendation for the board, if the board's going to make the motion to support Member Baltazar's clarification statement, I would recommend that the board make the motion that the board staff draft up the policy to amend it to include the bold as far as the fees and costs, and then also amend the manual to include the serial communication description. That way, at the next board meeting, the board staff can present the actual letter of the manual and what it'll state, and then the board can decide whether or not that's the actual wording that it wants to have.
Okay, so can we, I would like a board member to make a motion.
And please walk me through this, Justin. I would like to motion to amend our email procedures for board. I'm sorry?
If you would like, I could state the motion and you could say so moved, and then have someone second it, if that'd be easier.
Oh, yes, please. If you could, yeah.
So the motion would be to have board staff begin drafting the language for the email procedures for board members, AG, and staff, to include language regarding attorney's fees and costs with discussion with the Attorney General's office, as well as a description of the serial communications between board members.
Right, and also inclusion of the quorum thing. I feel like that should be in there as well.
Right, so is that what your motion is?
Yes, and so I say yes if so moved, or?
So moved.
Okay, yes, so moved.
And you can ask for your second, President Bramo.
This is Kai Stanton. I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
And so just a point of clarification, so the language, like I stated, will be presented by board staff at a future board meeting, and then at that point, that's when you guys can move to accept the actual language that's been drafted for you guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
Justin,
you.
for hoping to do that.
So the next agenda item is expense sheets that auto pop.
Oh, Member Bramo, I think you froze. Is he froze? Oh,
At least it froze on a good cheery picture.
Vice President Balthazar, maybe we can take like a 5-minute break to maybe to let President Bramo try to reconnect.
Yes, if we could move to have a 5-minute break to reestablish internet connection, please.
There's no motion needed, you could just call it.
Okay, calling for a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
All right, whenever you're ready to begin again, I think Gwen is on the line now. We can begin the meeting again.
President Brema, I think you're on mute.
Gwen, you're on mute. You have to unmute the mic.
Okay, I'm locked out of the board pack. If Leah could assist me.
She's working on it right now, President Brema.
Okay, good, thanks. I put my password in it too many times.
President Bremo, I don't think that there was any supplemental materials for expense sheets that auto-populate. Did you want to call that agenda item so that way we can move forward while Leah works on your board pack?
Okay, so while she's working on that, so we can go, so did we complete, we stopped off at the email, we got all we were going to the auto-populate expense sheet, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so did any board members have any question about the auto-populated expense sheets? What's the address to that? Because I still need it too. Is it Andrew's email?
I believe Andrew just left the room real quick.
I'm not sure. I don't think anyone knows what auto-populating the expense sheets. What do we auto-populate? What are the numbers?
And what kind of policy you guys were looking for, I guess.
So it's like, that was my suggestion. I was just wondering if, and first of all, Andrew has made the process even more simpler than I had originally thought, because by accessing his link, we fill out the form, and then the form, once we save it, actually automatically is submitted to Andrew. I thought we had to download the sheet and then email it to him. So he's made it even simpler than I had even been utilizing it. Even simpler yet would be if there's a possibility now I'm realizing it probably would require someone manually inputting the data, but a way for the form to auto-populate the amounts that we are to put down as far as expenses, et cetera. If that's not possible, I completely understand. I was just wondering if that were a possibility to auto-populate the amount, and so therefore we would just put in the dates and sign. But if not, it's already really simple to begin with, so I don't want to give the perception that I'm lazy. I just want accurate data, and I was hoping it might be able to help some board members in ensuring that accurate data is being inputted.
This is Kai Stanton. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is Andrew Elm Street officer, just to address Brian's concerns about the audit tip or advice about the auto-populate. I did look at into that early on actually with a DocuSign developer probably about a few months ago, because I also like the auto-populate feature. The problem with auto-populating a lot of fields is that it also restricts the document conversely also at the same time. So, sometimes you enter like a phone number in a date field or an amount in a date field or vice versa. If you have it too restricted to where it auto-populates things automatically, conversely, it can actually make it hard to fill out the document for people. So that's why the document is kind of left open. So every field is a text field. That kind of seems the best way to do it, at least according to DocuSign developers, when dealing with kind of an expense form like this, where you have multiple types of entries and things like that.
This is Kai Stanton. Thank you so much, Chief Financial Department. My concern is board members incriminating themselves, not being familiar with the dollar amount that is allotted per meeting. I think going forward, we understand what the discrepancy may or may not have been, and we have a solution in place. Moving forward, I would like all the current board members that are coming on to make sure that they're filling this information out, including if we have a meeting in the morning, that is a salary, and then a meeting in the evening, and then the pre-prep. So they need to make sure that their dollar amounts for each meeting is there and proper, as well as prep and the understanding of what prep is. Meaning you studied, you reviewed, if it was a library, you know, there's preparation, studying, understanding what that entails. What does preparation look like? What is board members are required to do in order to receive that? I would like some verbiage there so that they further understand that. With that documentation on there where it's, I do understand what Brian is saying, it's very easy, but my concern is dollar amount salary. If board members are writing dollar amounts, that is not allotted by NRS. That is law. That is illegal. We need to make sure they understand those dollar amounts. That's my concern.
They just won't get paid. It's not necessarily legal for somebody to mistakenly fill out an expense form. It's a responsibility of the accounting department, myself, my department, my role, to then correct that before we pay it out. So that's part of my review. So it's not legal. It's just you're not going to get paid anything that we already haven't voted in policy or law.
And it's not $150 per meeting. It's $150 per day. So your morning and afternoon meeting, that's one day, that's $150 for the entire day. It doesn't matter if we have 5 meetings in a day, it's $150 for that one day activity.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's noted for board. And Andrew, I do understand what you're saying. I just don't want board members shooting from the hip, coming on board, not knowing, not aware, not getting paid. That is not acceptable by board to not be paid for the work that you have implemented. And moving forward, we want to make sure that we're giving them what they have earned. And so that's why I'm asking for a clarification for not just for all board members, especially the new ones that are coming forward, to have that very clear so that those that are working diligently and very effortlessly are getting what they have earned. So thank you for clarifying that. But I would like board members to run on their own knowledge and making sure those details are to them 110% easy to understand. And it would help your job too, so you don't have to create so many corrections. So thank you for being on board with that and helping us be compliant with those and getting that information to all board members.
Okay, so do we have any other conversation or any more dialogue about the expense sheet? So we kind of know that now we're not going to be able to really get it auto-populated, but Andrew has the system. Andrew, can you, would you so kindly please resend that link? So, and then that way board members can save it in their saved email?
Yes, I'll resend it.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so now we can move to the next agenda item, which is board members in advance of the 3-day posting for public notice. I know that have been some conversation.
So is that basically just, you know, providing the agenda to the board prior to posting to the public in case we'd like to see any adjustments to the agenda items? Is that what in breadth that says?
I don't think once the public gets it, I might be wrong, but board member Bramo, I think that once it's posted to the public, I don't think it can be changed.
No. What I was asking is, I know there was a conversation or a request that I had made to provide the board with a rough draft of the agenda before it was made public in case we'd like to see any adjustments. I just wasn't sure if that was what we're talking about with this.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay. I would totally be in support of of advance notice in case we'd like to see any adjustments. I don't know what procedurally we have to do to make that happen, but it would help prevent us from, you know, halfway down the meeting realizing, oh, we probably should have requested this instead.
Board member, sorry, this is Justin. Just something to add to the discussion.
I can't hear.
Oh,
can you please speak up, Justin? I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Is this better, Member Stanton?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to add something for the discussion about the agenda. It was kind of touched upon in the training, but I just wanted to highlight it for you guys again. The best practice guide on page 20 states the current, I guess, policy of the board. It says development of the agenda. And it says the executive director shall develop the board agenda. The board president or the vice president in the president's absence will review and approve the agenda. That's the current policy that you guys have as far as the agenda creations. If you also look at page 21 of the best practice guide, there's a header called conduct during board meetings. And it says, quote, a board member may submit a request to the executive director or board president that he or she wishes to have an item considered for placement on the agenda. Any such request shall be submitted in writing at least 30 days prior to the next board meeting or during the previous board meeting. The president shall ensure that all items requested by the board members will be placed on the agenda at the next meeting, or if not possible, within 2 regular meetings. So that's what the current best practice guide states. There was a question about whether or not the agenda can be amended after it was publicly posted. The answer is yes, in certain instances. So the OML requires that the notice be posted at least 3 working days before the agenda. So if before 9 o'clock on the 3rd working day before the meeting. So let's say that the board posts the agenda 5 days before the 5 working days before the meeting. As long as you guys meet the 3 working days before the agenda at 9 o'clock, you guys can amend it. But once that 9 o'clock hits on the 3rd working day before the meeting, you can't add to that agenda that's already been published.
And
So is that, go right ahead, Director Landry.
anytime you're gonna add something to the agenda, it probably won't get on that meeting. If you want to add another item in there, it probably won't get on there unless it's done 30 days before. 30 days is the time it takes for us to get all the stuff together, put the board meeting together, get that items listed. We can't be making changes at the end because we don't know what kind of contact is going to be required. Some require more than 3 days, might have 21 days or something like that. So we can make minor modifications to the items that are already on the agenda, but we can't necessarily add items to the agenda. We'll take in the addition, figure out if it can be added, and then add it or not on that agenda. But just don't think that you can come 4 days before and add 5 items. That's not going to happen.
This is Kai Stanton. Thank you so much for the elaboration, Executive Director. I did read the manual and it does state that. However, let's make sure that we're making that statement according to agendas that are not large. Added 2 agendas that are a week before or 8 days before, that's something that is not required within such an extensive detail, but maybe an additive to an agenda is something that can be done as long as it's before the 3 days and not extensive information is required. So I think it's probably within our best practices to say that that is not something we would like to regularly practice, but it is something that we can do by law as long as it's before the 4 to a 3 day mark as explained in the AG manual. However, moving forward in caution, if there is something that is already is on the agenda and just needed and added to make sure all items are covered, we should probably be able to do that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the conversation I think we're having, I just want to make sure that we're all like understanding and like where we are and on the same page. So with the agendas, will the board be able to review a draft before it's posted? Period. Can I ask that question?
Yes, you will. And for the interim time when we're having more meetings than we normally have, like we're doing now, catching up on agenda items, you'll get that probably a week before. You'll have 2 days to respond, and then we're going to post it. So that'll be kind of the steps that we're going to go through. When we get to the regular agenda, when we start next year, starting in January, we're going to go 30 days out. We'll give you a look at the agenda, probably 35 days out. At the 30th day, that's when we're going to cut it off. So we're going to have much longer lead times for future meetings. Just these meetings we're having now are a lot closer in time frame. So
Okay,
some latitude in giving you more time to review that. When we get to the regular meeting starting in January, you'll have a 35-day notice, and you have to get the information into us by the 30-day notice.
okay.
That's good.
All right, so everybody's okay with that? We can go to the next agenda item?
Did you guys want to make that into your policy? If you did, then I motion, requesting a motion.
So is it not in policy already?
No.
The 35-day that Gary was talking about, I don't believe is in the policy. So if that's something that the board would like to implement, then.
We want to make it into policy.
Okay.
So can we get a motion?
And again, the motion would be to have board staff draft the proposed language for the.
Okay.
That states, as Executive Director Landry stated.
35 days notice to the board. You get the response back within 30 days. From 30 days on, that agenda is locked.
Okay, so Brian Baltazar, I motion to adopt the advance. No.
Board Member Balthazar, it would be, I move to have the board staff prepare a draft of.
Okay.
Yeah, of whatever you would like.
Okay, Brian Baltazar.
Okay, before you call the motion, Brian, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get a little bit clarity. Okay, remember Executive Director Landry, when you said that on the regular meeting, it's the 30-day out, but if it's the way we're having meetings now, what's in place? Because I mean, a disaster might hit again and we'll already have it in place.
We're gonna bend the rules, and we're gonna take 5 days out. We're gonna give you the agenda items. You'll have 2 days to respond. After that, there's no more responses. It's gonna be posted the third day before the meeting.
Okay, can we have all that drafted?
That doesn't have to be drafted. We can, but that'll be an emergency regulation. We can put that in emergency. I can put that in.
And not a regulation, but a policy.
Right, it's policy.
In policy.
I think that would be helpful to adopt that policy now as well, to continue
Exactly.
to give it the right where.
While we're doing it, we might as well. Okay, go ahead and call your vote.
So Brian Baltazar, I motion to request staff that they draft advance notice of the agendas or policies pertaining to the advance notice of agendas as Gary recommended.
Anita Douglas, board member, second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next agenda item is board pack agendas and supplemental materials after the meeting date. Is there any discussion?
Board member Brian Baltazar, I believe I had requested that perhaps that the information be available for the calendar or fiscal year. And if I didn't, well, that was a thought I had in my head, just to allow us to reference any past meeting information, because the information after we've concluded the meeting, we can't reference back to an earlier quarterly meeting at all. And since I don't save any of the documents or screenshot them, I don't have access to that data anymore. And sometimes some of those cases, I may look towards some of those cases of similar circumstance to help guide me in understanding how to decide in a future case. So I would just like to have that information in there for us to reference back to.
Board President Bremo, we can check off something that allows access for board members to look at all the previous board meetings and look at the decisions made and all the things that were done. If you want that done, that's something pretty easy for us to do. We can take care of that this week.
Okay, good. You know what I think would come, some of the kind of confusion maybe came from in the past, you know, when we first were board members, we had those big packets.
Right.
And I probably had 10 at home in my garage.
Me too.
So we could go back and refer, because you don't want to throw it away.
Right.
So
Absolutely, I still have mine.
And board members, sorry, just to add something else to the discussion, but as far as open meeting law goes as well, the meeting minutes and the meeting summary and the previous agendas are also posted on the cosmetology board website, so the public may also review those as needed as well. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, so do we need to have board staff to draft that, or how do we do that?
No, I don't think I don't think that's necessarily a policy, more so just internal.
Just a new implementation?
So
Okay.
I don't believe that there needs to be any action for that.
Yeah, as long as, should we take a vote to make sure all the board wants that?
But I would, yeah, so talking with Executive Director Landry, I would recommend taking a vote, President Bremo, to allow the board to do that.
Right. Okay. Can I get a board member to make a motion?
Brian Baltazar, I would like to motion to implement Executive Director Gary Landry's proposal into our official policies and procedures pertaining to the retention of board pack data, or is that correct?
It's fine, just access to the previous board data.
Or access to previous board data.
Anita Douglas, board member, I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So we're to the, I guess this is our last agenda item meeting. I mean, agenda item about the town hall meetings, and then we were gonna get an update from our deputy director.
And I think we actually glazed over, I think the officers one.
Yes, we're coming back to that. I did find the pages that we need to review in the financial policies.
Thanks for the correction. Okay. So town hall meetings was an agenda item.
Board Member McCormick, yes, it was. And the horse has been beaten and it's on the side of the road. So I just want to know if we can have these town halls, how we structure it, and just remind that the whole point of the town hall was to just give one well-organized resource for situations that we faced, such as COVID and the laws changing so rapidly. I thought that the call we had said a lot about people's, desire to participate, and I'd like us to have some options available to bring people together on a larger platform and deliver information. I'd also like it to be utilized when we see an uptick in what seems to be confusion about maybe a certain job or how things operate. Just a resource for us to get public input, answer questions in real time. And it doesn't have to be used all the time, but I just would love for the formation of such to exist. Thanks.
Do you have any other board members that want to make a comment? We have some of our new board members. What's your thoughts on our town hall meetings? Do we have any?
Okay. This is Anita Douglas, board member. I'm not really aware of the town hall meetings, so I'm not for sure. So once I'm updated on them, maybe I can comment on it.
I think what we're talking about too, board member Anita, is just maybe just beginning to look into it. We're just looking into Board Member Talia Trail would like for us to be able to have have town hall meetings, and we're just trying to brainstorm some ways that we can get information out, maybe with a town hall meeting, so that it could be, less confusion with the licensees about a particular change. Like when we had the COVID change and the governor shut the institution, or things that we couldn't do to open back up.
Right.
And then we had this flux of calls, about 1,500 people, or probably, I know had to be 1,000 that was on that call with us, that it took forever just to get them calm. So if we could have maybe town hall meetings in the future, however that look, that might kind of tailor some of the, making sure that all the licensees get the information. My thoughts, do you understand now what I was
because
talking?
when they do town hall meetings on the radio, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was even thinking that. I was even
Right.
thinking, Director Landry, do you think it's something that we can do, like when we have some information to get out, we can even possibly do a town hall recording?
Right.
And they call a particular line to get the information, or hold a town hall where so many people can call in for so many sectors of license, or is it for the cosmetologist, or this is new information for the estheticians, or this is information, because if we just have an open town hall, kind of like what we had before, it was a disaster.
I agree, and we can break it down to different segments and all. I think the best thing to do is if you could direct board staff to come up with a plan on how would we handle a town hall, what would we make as far as the topics to be covered, how would we handle that, either calling in, Zoom meetings, whatever.
I think we would love that. I can speak for myself. If board staff could do that.
That we can do, and I think it won't be like next meeting, but we can, maybe a couple of meetings from now, we can have all that laid out and tell you exactly how we implement it. We do that probably post-COVID-19 emergency, because it's hard to do something to get people to join in on a Zoom meeting if they don't know the technology. It's not hard, but it's just, you get a lot of participants.
Maybe we can post it on our website too, let them know a town hall meeting is coming. Those that's interested in what cosmetology industry has to offer, they're going to be following up, especially if we make some kind of announcement even on our page and our Facebook page that town hall meetings is 2 times a year, or when there's an emergency, you can always check our board site, or or some kind of way board staff can kind of draft some documents, maybe say not this meeting, but maybe the meeting in October, give us like a glance at what it might look like.
Right. Yep, we can do that.
I think that's fair.
That is amazing ideas. I further want to give board information on, I'm so glad you said that, Board Member Anita, regarding information regarding town halls. Going to give you a Christmas gift. You're going to love this. This is going to be full details on how this works, as well as some other functions. Do you have the open law meeting manual?
That's a negative.
Okay, no problem. We're gonna get that for you. So if you go on the AG website, there is open law meeting manual. That is how the board is functioning. It even has town hall meetings. It's a breakdown of how it should be conducted, how agendas should be posted. It's a full breakdown on the full communication, not just as a board member and how to conduct yourself, but how to actually conduct the town hall meetings. So that's very important information. That is your lifeline. Merry Christmas.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think we're getting ready to, I think there's Executive Landry should be contacting Board Member Harris, right? And the Board Member Douglas for their board training soon, right?
Yes, we're gonna have it probably in September. We're trying to get everything scheduled to get all the information back together. We're gonna do an individual session with both of them to cover what we covered with the rest of the board staff at our training meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Executive Director. That is outstanding. Outstanding.
Okay.
Are you trying to be funny?
Okay, so we have to make a motion for the board staff to see if they can possibly help us, assist us with that information and how it should be, how it's gonna look for us getting the information out.
That is correct, President Bremo.
President Bramo, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I would like to make a motion to, oh, sorry, is it too premature? You just said yes, right?
No, it's time.
Okay, thanks.
It's 3:25.
I would like to make a motion to be so moved by Justin, because I don't really know what to ask for right now. So I'd like to be so moved as well. Thank you.
All right, let me help you out, Member McCormick. So your motion would be to allow board staff to begin preparing a draft of the town hall policies and were you saying something?
Well, I just.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Brian, board member? Maybe it's phone.
Okay.
And
Is there's still a form? Okay, Member McCormick, your motion would be to have board staff begin preparing the language for the policies and procedures for the implementation of a town hall.
Yes.
To be presented at a future board meeting.
In October, can we say October board meeting?
If there's an October board meeting set for October already, I'm not sure if there is, but sure.
I'm so moved.
Okay.
So do we need to second that?
Hi, Stanton, I second that motion. I second that motion, excuse me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we're going back to.
Wait a second. I literally lost the entire section of the call where you guys discussed it.
You want us to tell you what you want Justin to tell you what the motion was?
I just wanted to know what the frequency was. I heard the tail end of I, and that's it.
Okay.
There is no frequency that's been decided yet. The only thing that's been moved was for the board staff to begin preparing the policies and procedures, which would probably include the frequency for presentation at a future board meeting, so that board members can decide upon it.
Okay, now if we have any recommendation on frequency, do we just email staff?
You can email me.
Okay. Okay, no, that's it then.
President Bramo, I think you have moved on back to the social media salon job posting section.
Okay, so we're back to, we're gonna table till the next meeting about the policies and procedures with the per diem versus the salary. We're tabling that one, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding, that's correct.
Right, Board Member Stanton?
Yes, President.
Okay, so now we're going back to, it was something to do with officers in position?
Social media, I believe, President Bramo, you were gonna request Deputy Executive Director Keegan Lawson to give you an update.
Right, staff is gonna get that for us for next meeting.
Oh, okay.
I have enough.
At the very,
We talked about the social media, right? Didn't we have that, Director Landry? Well, staff is gonna give us information to, at the end of it, we're gonna have the deputy to tell us how he was gonna be able to get the information out to the licensees about the posting on the website, correct?
Great.
And making sure that it's not an extreme cost to the board.
He's ready to talk about that now.
Okay, but before he talks about that, can we just go ahead so that when we finish with this conversation, we don't have to keep going back? There was something that we were tabling while Board Member Stanton was getting the right information.
Yes, and I have that information here. If we go to page 5 on segregation of duties, as stated earlier, I apologize, I did not have that page for you.
Okay, because that's right here under the, is it under board officer and duties?
Fiscal policies and procedures.
Oh, in the employee's handbook.
All the way at the bottom where it says fiscal policies and procedures, right under social media policies. You'll see the handbook there on the very end. It's the very last one. On page 5.
Okay.
At the very bottom, I would like for that to be changed where it says vendor payments are reviewed at the chief financial officer and approved separately by the deputy executive director. I would like for the board to be a part of that vendor process because some of the vendors, I think we can have a broader relationship regarding seeing the overall list and figuring out what may be more cost efficient for that company as well. So I think the board, for the agency as well, I think the board should be a part of that. Also, it says the president and secretary, treasurer are granted bank account access to review transactions periodically for basically certain reasonable, et cetera, so kind of pick and choose. I would like that to say the president and secretary of treasurer are granted bank account access to review transactions. And if there's any questionable reason why we cannot have that reviewed by the board, I would like for a cause to be presented to the board and the board approve that. I also would like to see all vendors reviewed by the board as well as any charges, anything regarding credit cards, vendors should be ran through Nevada State Board. And also my concern is I don't have any structure on what that looks like. What is the detail, meaning vendor-wise, how am I supposed to review this information regarding vendors and what vendor list has been approved and how do we approve certain vendors for the need of the board? Are we only looking for supplies and staff as well as outside other things that we need to have? How are condiments, lunches, things of this nature determined and approved? We need to have that in detail. This is so vague, it's hard to determine how to look at certain documentation and deem them appropriate or not, which will hold up any signatures if you're not sure of what you're signing and how you should be how you should be reviewing the documentation in front of you. How do you determine what is an appropriate vendor and what is not? There is no breakdown. It is completely vague. So those are where I'm having some challenges.
Okay.
Board member Brian Baltazar. So I think the way that it should be, I think.
Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm having really poor connection. I was wondering if perhaps we could include the review of transactions under the officers responsibilities and formally designate those responsibilities to the president and the treasurer to review all financial transactions, not just a select financial transaction.
Andrew Helm, Chief Financial Officer. All financial transactions are being reviewed, whether it's on the bi-weekly basis of vendors@bill.com and Hub.com, or if it's on a monthly basis when the credit card statements, the financial bank accounts, distributed to the president and the treasurer, as well as the executive team, as well as card holders.
Oh, you're on mute, Andrew.
We're good now.
All right. Where was I addressed Ryan's concerns. So first of all financial transactions of money dispersed from the board's bank accounts are reviewed by the board president, board secretary treasurer, the executive team, and the credit card holders on a monthly basis. On a semi-monthly basis or bi-weekly basis, the vendors are paid through bill.com, HubDoc. The secretary, treasurer, president receive those, all those statements whenever checks are cut. The AR report, the accounts receivable report is included with that packet. Multiple reports are included with that packet. Fiscal policies and procedure guide was approved during the November 21st, 2019 board meeting, at which time there weren't any contributions or modifications to what was written in it, but the guide has been drafted based on this is not my own opinion or my own knowledge or anything, but it's a collaboration of information and guidance from the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the SAM, which is the State Administrative Manual, the Nevada Internal Audits Division, and NORI, which is the National Council of Nonprofits, in addition to our own auditors, Holders and Russo. So really a lot of these, and also I think that approving and reviewing are two different things, and it's very important that we get the verbiage correct, because if you want to approve transactions before they're made, it's really going to slow down business operations. I mean, that's not something that would typically be done by somebody who only attends a public meeting, once every quarter. It's not. I'm trying to follow the logic here, and if there's evidence of fraud or something that I wasn't doing, or somebody else, or if there's some sort of financial quackery going on, or what, you guys got to talk to me. I think you have to communicate to me beforehand, before we get to these meetings. I would really appreciate it if you call me or email me directly and talk to me, because I can address just about anything, but the questions aren't being asked of me. It's just stuff comes up during a board meeting and it's an agenda item or something else, and I never really get a chance to respond until it's projected from a stance of something's not being done right. There's not enough checks and balances. This document was approved by our auditors, and they're CPAs, local CPAs. I mean, they audit other governments, other nonprofits. It even says here, I mean, we utilize the annual self-assessment questionnaire, the SAQ, from the Division of Internal Audits. So, I'm just failing to see why the extra safeguards are going, or safeguards, and I put quotes around that because they're not really safeguards, they're going to become impediments. Vendor relationships are also a tricky thing. I'm not sure what expertise board members have with specific vendors, but I'm not really sure. I'm a certified contract manager. I've been in this role for 7 years, so you really have to explain in a little more clarity and detail for me what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve by putting another step in place.
And it does say on page 6, not page 5, but keep reading on page 6, all issued vendor payments are summarized in a report that is reviewed and electronically signed by the president, secretary treasurer, executive director, and deputy executive director. So there's not a transaction that goes out the president and secretary treasurer haven't looked at and reviewed. If you want the entire board to look at these transactions, we're going to have to cut the meetings in half, because it'll take half a day to explain all the transactions to everyone to get everyone up to speed.
Okay, so
This
I
is-
think, okay, I'm sorry, Board Member Stanton. I just wanted to say, it appears to me that, I'm hearing this, trying to put this in the right perspective. It appears to me that it sounds like there's maybe something we need to put in place. I don't know what, but it sounds like there's something uncomfortable or it's not enough clarity. It's from like what I'm hearing. I think we're all kind of hearing the same thing. So it appears, and I understand, Andrew, because I do sign off on those documents and I try to review, but I don't go into, to be totally honest with you, every single detail because I don't sign to that extent. I just sign to the extent that I approve. I trust you guys and I approved what you actually send me because I'm looking at it and it looks like to me it makes sense, but I'm not Secretary Treasurer by no means. I don't get to see or ask any of those questions that I feel like maybe is coming up. So, and I do understand what you're saying, that you feel like you're maybe not giving the opportunity to be able to explain. I understand, and I do understand that it's a chain of command that has to be followed. So I think it gets kind of, you know, your person doesn't really know as a board member who they're supposed to reach out to ask certain questions. So what it sounds like, if this is what we're talking about, I'm just trying to figure out a solution that will help us kind of resolve and tailor some of what the questions are. Maybe that is something that Board Member Stanton, as the new Secretary Treasurer, can work with you on to see, like, maybe this is what she would like to see moving forward for any Secretary Treasurer that's in position, and then that can be brought back to the board for us to be able to say that this is what we would like to approve as well. Because there seems to be some miscommunication or some non-communication, and it's kind of spilling over into kind of like, I'm confused now.
This is Kai Stanton, board member, and I'm so happy you said that, Andrew. Here's the thing. So all of the information in the process that you brought to me, exceptional. The problem with that is when we're approving things, how are we picking these vendors? How much per month is allotted for coffee? What is the breakdown for that? That's where I'm coming from regarding, I'm sorry, let me finish. I'm sorry.
Should I address these questions as you raise them right now? Or?
Oh, okay, I'll do one at a time. I apologize. So my question is, number one, why is not the board and
before you asked who picks the vendors? Is that the first question you like?
I was just going to sum up one question at a time because I did give you a mirage of questions. I do understand that. So I am going to backtrack that and only list one question at a time. So my first question is, why is the board not a part of the approval process for how much the credit cards are approved for and how many are given out? If that's a question, if we need to clarify, that's why I wanted to bring it when I sent off it's kind of hard to be very transparent when kind of my hands are tied regarding policies and communication regarding emails that received. So I cannot go into full detail because I do not want to paint a negative narrative of anyone. I'm just trying to get clarification on how I should be reviewing documentation. And in order for me to review documentation, I need to know what is the allotment for X, Y, and Z amount that is being spent. How are the credit card approvals being approved and on what background of description? What is each one allotted for and why is the board not a part of that? So it kind of like, it's a mirage of questions because one kind of piggybacks on the other one. I apologize. I do have more, but those are my first one.
And actually I did respond to that question you had, how the credit card limits are established. I responded on August 12th, 7:30 a.m. ICOT, credit card limits were established based on operational duties and needs for individual and position holding the card. The monthly consolidated credit card statements, all credit card transactions combined, are reviewed by the ED, executive director, deputy director, myself, president, secretary, treasurer, and respective cardholder. Even though all purchases are reviewed by everyone listed, the liability ultimately rests with the individual holding cards if they're issued on a personal basis. For these technologies, CFO is automatically not notified when they're spending beyond a certain limit. You had a question regarding some of the card. So
I'm sorry, Chief, you're kind of clouding out. I can't hear you very clearly.
I'll respond right away because your question was how are the credit card limits established? And as I was saying, I responded to you in that email on August 12th at 7:30 a.m. saying the credit card limits were established based upon operational duties and needs for individual position of one card. Now, it's kind of becoming like, so this fiscal policies and procedures document, this is a high level overview. So you're not going to get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step to 20 through this document. You're only getting like a high level, in my opinion, a little bit more than a high, this is semi-detailed, but it's not going to tell you how to actually do it. So if you're looking for like more of a technical manual, then, then that's when you become an employee of the board and actually follow the procedures and things along those lines that are more technical and operational in detail. Things like when you say things like board members being a part of the approval process to pay vendors, maybe it's coming off as me saying that, oh, I don't want that because maybe it sounds shady on my part. But the truth is that I'm afraid that it's going to cause an impediment because I have board members that are struggling to use DocuSign and that we're very technologically savvy here. We're using processes that, it takes some training. We're certified. I'm certified in these systems. I'm certified to use Bill.com. I'm certified to use several different, I'm a certified contract manager with the state. I'm a certified public manager with the state. So, through these certifications, through these different educational paths that I've gone through in my career here, comes certain training and things that, it's more than just holding a title or being in that position. When Gwen was referencing that she doesn't look at every single transaction, that she just gives it a high-level overview. That's basically what she should be doing. She should be thinking, after you see a number of these statements, as I stated on the previous email, you're going to gain a degree of reasonableness with our transactions. You're going to see trends because it's very routine. Another thing that you might want to look at is the budget. So a lot of those transactions on the credit card statement, they're lumped into a budget account called office expense. Traditionally, office expense has been going down 8 to 10% year over year. I think since the past like 5 years or so, maybe 6 years. So, there's multiple components to looking at a single transaction and saying, this is the problem. I wasn't asked with the credit card statements, for example, I wasn't asked, hey, what's this transaction? Can I see a receipt? Or not even that, or just what's it for? There's not enough questions, there's just more commands and saying that things should be this way or that way without understanding the reasoning behind it first. And, I'm doing it like, I think just about every single one of my emails says, please reach out to me with questions. Everyone has my personal number, my office line, my email, I have a fax number on there. I mean, I'm not trying to get away with anything. I don't have any marks on my record for integrity or any ethical issues like that or concerns. But, I'm getting the tonality here seems to be very much like there's something amiss. And, I'm currently, the board is currently under an annual audit right now. We'll see what the results of that are, but I don't think that they'll have any issue with these types of items that are currently in the fiscal policies and procedures. This is actually provided to the auditors, so they have it, as well as our reserve policy, which is also approved during a public board meeting.
So much for your response, Andrew.
Before we start,
let's be very clear so that the narrative, I feel like the narrative is a little confusing, and that's because the lack of transparency and communication that I can only have regarding certain information. So I do understand how you feel that way. It is not a direct hit on you. As you said, you have extensive information, you have extensive background. Board members do not. So it's important that board members ask those questions and making sure what they're looking at, that they're doing it the right way. It is not under any circumstances highlighting anyone's character or integrity. It is asking questions because we need that information in order to be successful. And my point of what I'm stating is not to say you're doing anything wrong, name names. That is not okay. Not even in the look at. If we're saying we're allotted for X, Y, and Z coffee amounts, that's what I need to look for. I'm not under the impression that we just sign things. If there is a question, it is okay to say, how did we come to this? And more board members will have that question because they are new to this position, just as I am, just as others. And even if you're not, mistakes are going to happen. And so we need to be open to that communication without feeling attacked. And that's where I'm at. Because board members' names are on things, we just need to have some clarification on how did we come to this. So I apologize if it was, that was the understanding of what was perceived, but I'm also having this conversation in front of my board because I strongly believe in making sure things are done accurately. And I do have to raise those questions when we've had some question regarding salaries. So there are some things that we just have to have clarification on. So please do not take this personal, but questions will arise, and I want to make sure that my signature and what I'm doing is accurate according to description. And like you said, because there is no description, that's where I'm hung up at, and that's where a lot of the miscommunication comes from as well. So it sounds like we need to have some other policies in place to review that so that I can say, hey, Andrew, X, Y, and Z. So no, I don't want vendors brought to us. I want the understanding of what we're looking at and how we can make sure we're cost efficient as well. That's all I'm saying. So thank you. I do apologize for that. I will make sure moving forward, just as I have in the past, to always make you a part of the conversation. And if there's any overviews, I CC you that on the emails.
That sounds good, Kai. You know, the problem was that you just said now that you know, you want to raise questions first, but the conversation started because you mentioned that you wanted to eliminate, that you want additional approvals in place to pay vendors. That's not a question. That's automatically changing a policy previous to me or anybody providing input on it. And it's difficult because why don't you just ask me first why this policy is in place before mentioning, well, let's change it to something else.
Right, so I'm hoping that because you're here and Justin, to help me with that verbiage, with the understanding of what I'm trying to accomplish. So if that means we need to have a better verbiage to accomplish that narrative or that agenda, I'll be more than happy to do that. There are a lot of things that are taking out of context. Just as one of the things I had to remove, if there misunderstandings happen, that doesn't mean that is the stance and the aggressiveness of the board. That means we need to have some clarity and some understanding, and that's what we're developing now.
Kai, this is Justin. So statutorily, there's nothing that says who must approve it under 644A, right? It's all.
Say that again, Justin. I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Under 644A, the cosmetology statutes, it doesn't state specifically who or who does not approve accounting reports. I would defer to Andrew as the CFO of the board why these policies are in place, especially since he's named off a few, like the state administrative manual, the auditors worked with him, and all those other ones. I don't have expertise in that. I can only state what your chapter states, and so I need to defer this matter specifically to Andrew because he has all the information about it. And so I would just pass the questions off to Andrew because I don't really have any.
So Gwen Bramo, board member, is there any way that board member Stanton could work with our chief officer, Andrew, to come up with some type of policy to bring back to the board because that is his expertise?
Yes, there's not only a policy or a procedure to do that. Andrew has written Kai 3 times. I've written Kai twice, explaining what we can do and for her to contact Andrew. There has not been any contact to Andrew. That's where we stand today.
This is Kai Sianten. Thank you. This was what executive director is responding to was an email that was sent to me and that I responded to, and I received a email communication regarding that and how X, Y, and Z of people cannot be on that email, and that was for transparency to see what I was referring to, how I needed to take this to the board, what I was reviewing, because I was not very clear on what I was reviewing. And I further emailed executive director about that information. Answers were not given. I did see it on the 12th once I received it from Andrew, and I stopped the communication regarding requesting things because I cannot change policy or pull anything unless we have a meeting. So that's where the communication had stopped, because there's nothing else I can communicate unless I had a clear understanding, especially in front of board, which falls back on the information given that we are just now receiving in June for training that we are implementing. So once again, when I'm seeing things that I'm not sure should be there, questions will be raised, and I will have to put a hold on any signatures that I'm not sure about that the staff should be charging or anything. So that shouldn't be a negative. That should be considered as a positive to make sure that everything is accurate.
Okay, so Andrew, my question, Board Member Bramo, my question goes back to.
I'm sorry, one more thing, President. Let me be clear, this is not a direct on Andrew. Andrew is a part of this because he is head of this department. I was referring to charges that were made, and how am I supposed to look at charges that are made? Is this charge okay? What is the breakdown? Once again, if we are supposed to have $100 for supplies, we should say $100 for supplies. I need to know the breakdown. And it sounds like we don't have that breakdown. And is that bylaws or is that policy? That's where my confusion comes in. That's what I'm asking for. And so when I request past documentation, I would like to see some level of, is there a habit here? Is there, what are we looking at? What am I looking at? I'm, as Chief Executive Director said, we're just signing things, but that's not the description in what I read. We're also responsible. If anything happens, we signed off on it. So it kind of, because the expertise is already lying there 20, 30 years plus, it still leaves board members in limbo when they're signing off on things without that direct description, is all I'm saying. And then it has the negative connotation of communication of for the head chief, which is nowhere near he's only reviewing the documentation as received and processing them accordingly. He's not making charges. Does that make sense?
So at this point, board, I think what we need to do to probably move forward is this is just maybe a recommendation from me. And then I would like to hear from the other board members. If Andrew, if there's any way that you could maybe have a meeting with Board Member Stanton and come up with some type of procedure to whatever spending costs and what that procedure looks like. Is there limits? However it needs to be drafted in that policy. If there's any way that we could maybe get that information, and I think and bring it back to the board for a possible approval. Because I mean, I think that it sounds like this is going to be needed.
Yeah, that sounds good, Glenn. I can include that information automatically in the fiscal policies and procedures.
Okay, because it to me, it just, you know, I'm listening, but I'm listening to what I think might be needed in the future for us, is to have something documented where this is how this is approved, this is what our budget is for this, and we don't go over that, or if we do, this is who needs to sign off for it. It needs to be something in place, or it doesn't seem like we're gonna get very far.
President Bramo?
Yes?
This is
Go right
Board
ahead.
Member McCormick. I understand where Kai is going because of her level of awareness in this position. I get it. I do, though, want to caution that I think that the discussion needs to happen as to this position won't always be occupied by someone who is how do I word this? Overall, removing the ability to be fluid when paying vendors and doing what we have to do, ultimately that needs to stay protected because the board needs to continue to operate fluidly as it has been. People getting paid on time, things happen. So for us to put policies or even attempt to impede it, I don't think that that is Kai's intention. If it is, that's not what's coming through. But I do think that we should really, we really need to take a close look at how much oversight we think we need with our level of education pertaining to these matters. Because you're talking to someone who has an amazing wealth of education, and asking for clarity is one thing, but being given the ability to impede the process, being on her term would probably be devastating. So I'm just saying I would like to see pretty much it being stay in a where they're not going to be impeded is what I'm saying coming through to everyone. I don't want to belabor this, but I do believe that yes, conversations need to be had, but impeding the process, no.
Thank you, board member. Any other comments before we I guess move to a motion? Any other
What
comments?
would that motion be? Or what are we considering?
Well, it seems like we're gonna need help with Justin on this one again.
To be honest with you, President Bramo, I thought you guys were just going to have Andrew and Member Stanton discuss what was going forward. And they could have that discussion off the record and present whatever they want on an agenda on a future date, which I don't believe would require a board vote for them to discuss that.
Okay, I'm trying to understand to make sure that we're all on the same page as board members. So my recommendation was to have our chief officer, Andrew, to meet with board member Stanton, and maybe we can, from their conversation of the level of, whatever that level of policy or procedure that needs to be put in place and brought back to the board for an approval. I would like to see something in place far as whomever the secretary treasurer may be. These same issues may not arise and we won't have to have this same conversation.
This is Kai Stanton. I feel like the information from the beginning is getting lost in the shuffle. I'm just asking for a basic, I don't know if you can find that in bylaws. I've seen it in bylaws where there's just a simple breakdown of X, Y, and Z department has X, Y, and Z dollar amount for supplies. Supplies consist of not a soda, not a salad. We need to make sure that what we're requesting is accurate. Now, if it's everyday, supplies, I just don't want, things so far from the board where we can't figure out what's going on, especially when we're signing off on things. So how do you understand what I'm saying? And that's why I was asking for Justin to help me verbalize this. I don't know if I'm requesting bylaws, or am I requesting a description or an adopted policy, just to say, as Secretary of Cosmetology, this is what you look at, this is how we allot for supplies, this is how we, this is what it is for our vendors. Period, point blank. Here's the breakdown. So when I look at the budget, I say, oh, we had Office Depot, we had X, Y, and Z. Okay, great, bye. You know, I just want something sketched in stone to where I know what I'm looking at. I mean, does that make sense? I'm not asking to really be a part of the process. I'm asking to know that process, not be a part of the process. And every 5 minutes, I have to say that, because when I'm told that's not in policy, that has to be the board, that's not here, that has to be board, that has to be board. Well, we have to bring it to board. That's where that birthed from. When I'm constantly stopped by that's not policy or procedures, that's board, I have to bring it to the board to create some level of policy and understanding so they can help me with my verbiage on what I'm trying to say. As McCormick said, board member McCormick said, I do not want to slow down the process. And I think that's the narrative that's being changed to make it seem, however, at the end of the day, that's my point. I need to know what I'm looking at. So does anybody else in this position. Dollar amount, what we need to sign off, I mean, dollar amount, that's there, period. And it's already in place. It's already in place. We just need to know, as a treasurer, what is considered supplies. Very easy, very easy.
Board Member Stanton, if I may, I'm trying to understand. So aside from the budget, aside from what's presented as we spend $5,000 a year on office supplies, is it correct to say that you want to know what is considered an office supply?
Yes.
How much we spend on coffee and how much a paper purchase
What is considered? Yes. Thank you, Ms. Mack. Thank you.
So
yes,
the categories that go under office supplies.
Yes, ma'am. That's all I want. That's all I want. Thank you.
It's just listed right there, coffee, paper, etc. I mean, if the thing is, it's done on a yearly basis. It's the budget. The budget is the office expense, general ledger account 5220, office expense. Like I said before, it's been going down 8 to 10% over the past 5 years, year over year. That budget item, which is not that large, all those types of coffee and paper, etc., it all gets lumped into that. So we don't have to spend the time trying to figure out what exactly this $10 charge is or the $15 charge is, because it's immaterial. They're such small amounts that they don't really matter. And they may matter because it's the only transaction you see, or it stands out on a credit card statement, but that's only because we have less expenses right now because of COVID, and we're majority of our employees are working from home half the week. But I mean, other than that, I'm looking at this financial responsibilities for board members document that you signed when you were first appointed to that secretary treasurer position, and it says right here, the majority of Penny's financial transactions are routine and standard, may take time to develop a sense of reasonableness of the reports, especially since it's all new. The goal is to develop a general awareness of the board's finances. You won't need to examine every transaction. You'll be paid $75 every 2 weeks for this review. These reports will be sent through DocuSign. I mean, and then just last week, you sent me an email asking me what the $75 was for. So
that's not a negative, right, Andrew? When I'm asking questions, I feel like there's a level of emotion there, and I'm just trying to have understanding. And like I said, no one's accusing you of anything, and I think you're taking it as a negative.
I don't feel accused. I don't feel accused. The problem is that I'm not sure if you're coming from a level of understanding or if you want.
The problem is lack of training on my part. Yeah, and that's why that conversation is happening for questions.
Let's discuss it one-on-one.
On discussing it one-on-one, we weren't even really sure, could we even have a conversation with staff? We're just clarifying regarding emails and how to communicate through emails and what's okay and what's appropriate to who. So that's why I'm saying I think a lot of things are training, and I think a lot of emotion is coming from that level of lack of training that is just being implemented and given back in June.
I'm confused about the emotion, but so this DocuSign document goes on to say, if you have any questions or concerns, please contact the Chief Financial Officer using the information below. And at that point, I list the office, my office direct line, my direct cell my personal cell phone number and my email address, and you signed that on July 15th. So, you know, I just want to make sure that, because I sense a lot of emotion, you're right, I do, a lot of confusion and those sort of things. So I want to make sure that, you know, I like the idea of a one-on-one, and hopefully at a time that within the business hours of the board, we're able to convene together, perhaps one-on-one, and we can have a video conference or a phone conversation and actually have some productive conversation about these items.
Right.
So-
Thank you, Andrew. And I appreciate your understanding on that, because I received the same email from Leah, but it wasn't okay to respond. So do you understand how that can be conflicting for me, especially not when I'm not there in the office? So I appreciate you understanding now that we have clarification, and I do look forward to working diligently with you to make sure it's successful.
Okay. I can't
Okay.
have a conversation between you and Leah.
Thank you, Chief Officer Andrew and Board Member Stanton. Okay, so it sounds like we have a resolution here. It sounds like, okay, go right ahead, Board Member Harris.
I think you're on mute, Member Harris.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. I was listening, I was doing something. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I just want to make sure that we're all on one accord as a board, and we kind of understand exactly what just transpired. So now that we know, moving forward, the Chief Operating Officer, which is Andrew, and Board Member Stanton will meet
Financial
this
officer.
particular,
For the record.
we'll discuss, right? This particular subject or issue, and if needed, policies, procedures to be put in place, that information could come back to the board. How does that work?
Members, President Bramo, I believe that Mr. Helms and Member Stanton will be discussing what their positions are one-on-one. And I guess from there, if there's any confusion as far as the charges, I think that's when they're going to discuss. I didn't believe that there was any motion or any action that the board needed at this time. It was just more of a let Mr. Helms and Member Stanton discuss what's going on right now and see if there even needs to be an agendized policy and procedure.
Okay, I think that's fair.
And I didn't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for Member Stanton or Mr. Helms if that's incorrect, but that was my understanding.
No, that is great. And I do look forward to working with Andrew. I think in all relationships you have hiccups, but I'm grateful that both of us are professional enough to be very diplomatic and communicate to have a positive solution. And I will be leaning on his knowledge, which I always have. And I do apologize if there was any misunderstanding in which was taken. However, I do appreciate the communication, which I will be given ongoingly. So I look forward to speaking with you soon, Andrew.
That's no problem, Kai. Actually, I just sent you an email asking you what date times work best for you to discuss our different processes.
Okay, and I just want to say, I think you're outstanding and amazing, and I think sometimes I try to shield you from a lot of fire, and so I apologize because the dragon is kind of like, well, so.
Okay, well, we get past that one. Can we hear now from our, any more comments about what was just discussed before we go to our last agenda item? Okay, so we didn't need a vote for that or a motion. The last agenda item was, we're gonna hear from Deputy Director Adam about the social media expense and social media tracking, right?
Correct. Thanks, Madam President. Adam Higginbotham, Deputy Director, for the record. We posted an online form for salons to request us to do a social media post on our website back in April 23rd of 2018. And the reason why that there's a disclaimer about the board not supporting or promoting a salon came at the advice of the Attorney General's office at that time of implementation. Since April 23rd, we've had 56 requests that have been submitted on this online form. From those 56 requests, 10 of those requests have come from 5 salons. So there have been a total of 46 different salons and 56 that are cycled within 10.
So excuse me 1 second, Deputy. So you said 10 has came from 5 salons?
Correct. 10 social
We have
media.
the same 5 salons that's actually being reposted.
They've had 2 posts, and there are some confusion because some of the posts that have been made may be from a multi-location salon, and it was for different salon locations that they were posted.
Okay.
But the straight up duplicate posts, there were 10. The cost to email the 2,700 or so some active salons, the cost per email is about 0.00075, and to send an email to 2,700 salons would cost about $2.03.
Oh, that's nothing.
I like that.
And the board staff spends, because we already have a template, the board staff spends less than 3 minutes per salon posting, and the board staff communicated that it's of course it's whatever at the pleasure of the board, whether they want to maintain this process or not. It's only to, I mean, it was a way to promote traffic on our social media, along with a way of ensuring successful percentages for salon for student placement, for them to get jobs after getting their test and their license.
Or jobs. Board members, this is my personal recommendation, speaking just for one vote. I would like to see the social media page stay, but I would also like to make sure that we send maybe, and I'm just trying to say because there's so many salons opening that might not get an email, but maybe send an email since it's only 0.75 or whatever. That's like $2.30 to email 2,700 salons. I think we should probably send out a mass email quarterly, letting them know about that. And then those salons that have the multiple posts, because they're still promoting their names, that if they're gonna post, they need to post and have their posts with all locations. Like if you have a multiple salon, you should probably say either this is the phone address to these 2 places, this is the phone number you call, instead of keep getting posts under the same name, different location. My personal.
This is Board Member McCormick. I would like to know how many members we have on Facebook like now. Like, is it, I'm not able to, honestly, I'm trying to see here where I even would see these numbers. But bottom line is, I think that with social media, the goal is to give people who subscribe to your channel and people who follow your channel basically a head up, like a heads up. So that's why you encourage people to subscribe and things like that. So I think that the email should go out, but I think it should go out to the target specifically, which is those people who have subscribed, which includes the licensees. So if they work for someone who has an opening, they can share it. But I think we should try to encourage it through social media. And I mean, the email is great, but one email and then social media after that. I wouldn't want to do it quarterly.
Member McCormick, this is Justin. Just to answer your question, I just Googled it real quick. It looks like there's 2,580 people who like the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology Facebook page and 2,822 people who follow it, with 1,563 people who.
And my question, Board Member Bramo, how many salons that we open up within a quarter? Because I don't want us to have a flux of salons open up and then we don't get another email to another year. So we have to kind of measure all areas. How many salons do we open a quarter, or should we just do a mailing every 6 months? We do 2 email blasts to the salons every 6 months. Because I know within a 6-month period, we probably open up how many more salons and creating how many more jobs?
Brian Baltazar, if I can piggyback on, well, I don't know if it's piggybacking because I'm in a disagreement. I would actually encourage it to be either, I would not want to limit it to only people that are on social media. I think we just concluded talking about making it more expansive and raising visibility. And by just honing in on individuals that are on Facebook, I don't think does not, for me, create the perception of a fair and equally accessible resource to everyone that is a licensed establishment in our state. I would still move forward with email blasting every single establishment, and then allowing them to decide whether they want to participate, but at least they have been informed. Quarterly basis, I feel, is a great frequency because it coincides with our frequency in meetings. I would even go so far as saying on a monthly basis, but that I do not want to create more work for board staff, but I think quarterly is a good number just because I'm reflecting on the number of meetings that we have. But I wouldn't want to limit it to just those that follow us on social media because we want every licensed establishment to have that knowledge and to make that, freedom of choice to participate or not, but at least they have that information.
I like that. Thank you, board member. I think that if we're going to send it out, we need to send it out since it's only going to cost $2.30 to send out 2,700 postings at a time. I'm sure there's going to be some salons that open up within that 3 months or that 6 month period of time that will need the information because they're going to be a new salon that might be looking for new licensees and their students graduate looking for employment. So is there any way, Director Landry, we could, or Deputy Adam, that we could implement something like that?
Yes, that would not be hard to implement. It's $2.50. We could do it twice a year, 4 times a year, whatever the board wants.
Okay.
Sorry, I had pages, Madam President, sorry, I had pages up. I was looking for
but my question,
information that you provided. You asked the question. Every quarter, we probably have 164 salons. I mean, I just pulled up a random quarterly report. And the last quarter of 2019, we approved 164 salons during the last quarter there. So we're looking at probably
that's fair.
300
Absolutely.
salons every 6 months.
Yeah. If we could do something like that, then make sure we get the information out, because I knew we opened a lot of salons. It's a lot of salons here. I think that would be more than fair. I think it's a resource, and I think we don't need to take away resources. I think we need to add all the resources we possibly can to help our businesses succeed. But I think it needs to be fair and straight across the board. So that sounds, if a salon too is posting for every location, I think that's a little bit unfair. How do we handle that?
The multi-salon location, the multi-location could be combined into one post.
Yep.
There could be a time frame. If you do a post, there's X number of days that you should wait before reposting. Well, we could try to see if that's going to utilize much resources. But in the big picture of things, since April 2018, we've had 10 duplicates.
Okay, so if we can just let board staff, if you can take charge of that, Deputy, and just, put some parameters where, we won't have, because they might start saying, won't be duplicate posting, so they're gonna say, well, this is a different location, but it's still the same name. So if you guys get, take over staff and put something together for us to approve, I think it'd be awesome. I think we should keep it as a resource. Is there any way you can get that back to us? Since, you know your numbers and you got all your information right there. I appreciate it. You think you can get it back to us for the next board meeting so that we can maybe do a possible action on the social media policy?
Yes, yeah, up for the October.
Yep, October's fine.
Member Bremo, if you would recommend that, then I would recommend calling for a motion on that.
Can you repeat that?
If you're going to request that recommendation to Mr. Higginbotham, I would recommend calling for a motion for that. Just to make
Okay.
sure.
Okay, any other comments or questions about the social media policy from any board member before we call for a motion? Okay, can I get a motion?
This is Board Member McCormick. I'd like to make a motion to ask board staff to create a social media policy. Is that right?
That is correct. And you would like it for the next.
Update.
That to be presented to the board at the October board meeting.
Board Member Harris, I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Whew, this has been a meeting. My question now, I think we're at the end of the meeting. It's for public comment, right?
That is correct, President Bremo.
Do we have any public comment?
I don't think any of
Board,
them stuck around for this meeting.
No, the board will entertain any public comment. No public comment. Let's move to the next agenda item. Is there any comments from any of the board members before we close?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just would like to consider the possibility of bylaws. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but really we need a consensus amongst the board. I still believe that it's kind of fragmented when we're looking at this manual and that manual, and some of it was kind of displayed today where we weren't sure what manual we were looking at, and we're piecing together pieces from manual A to manual B, and it's like we need a diagram to just follow some of these, how some of these policies interconnect. And so I think just by having bylaws and I just feel like that would streamline the process a lot more. But that's also been my personal experience on other organizations that have had bylaws. So this is the first time that I've been on a board that has had more leeway and more freedom because of its more liberal or more loose structure.
Is there any way that we could, Board Member Bremo, is there any way that we could put for the next agenda item for possible discussion and action for bylaws, to look into it and see what it would take?
You could, President Bremo, this is Justin Sharif for the record. The first action I would first action I would take if you wanted to agendize that would just be to see if you guys wanted to have board staff look into the bylaws and then go from there.
Yes.
Similar to what we did today with the different policies and procedures, how you guys voted on having board staff drafting them and stuff like that. The agenda item for next time, if you wanted to do bylaws, would just be to have them proceed with researching and reviewing.
But that's what I meant. I'm sorry, Justin. That's what I meant. I know it's not going to be bylaws. I want to see what it takes for bylaws and what bylaws is all about. We need to ask staff to look into what would it look like, or give us a draft of entertaining bylaws on our next board meeting agenda item.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you did that, because that's what I meant. I know that we can't have bylaws. I wanted to see what it looks like if we had bylaws, or do what organizations, I don't know what organizations have bylaws and what organizations don't, but if we need bylaws and this is what's going to make it runs more efficient, then maybe it's something that staff can take a look at now and bring it back to the board for the next appointed board meeting.
This is Kai Stanton. I would like to further support that, and asking for that to not just be reviewed, but for the board to add that to agenda, to have that voted on. I think that that clarification that the bylaws will provide with the full description will disperse all miscommunication, as well as leading anything to make staff or board feel isolated in solutions or decisions that need to happen. I feel like this will be full clarity, because what has transpired today, I never want anyone else to feel that way. And I think if I had those bylaws, I think a lot of things would have been clarified for me as well, versus I'm trying to figure out what manual goes with what. So that's my statement. Thank you, President.
Okay, so I think we need to make a motion.
To adjourn.
This is Kaisen.
Oh,
Go ahead, Brian, I apologize.
no, I thought, I wasn't sure if we had to make a motion to request that
We have
board
to make a
staff.
motion.
No, President Bremo, you can't make the motion because right now it's just a discussion only, comments by the board. What
Oh, yes,
is that the executive director took notes that that's something that you guys would like to have that discussion for next time. So there's no board vote needed for that to be on the next agenda.
So they'll just have it on the next agenda.
That is correct.
October agenda, not next.
Which is the September meeting, am I correct?
The October agenda, I'm sorry, I guess Mr. Landry clarified that is for the October agenda.
Is it
Okay,
possible
so-
we move that to the
scheduled.
September agenda, or would that be too much overload for the agenda?
I would defer to board staff as far as workload.
Too much work to put in that short of time, because we need a lot of time to get all the manuals and decide what type of structure we'd have for the bylaws.
That's fair, that makes sense.
Okay, so what's gonna happen with, I'm confused now.
So next board meeting, October board meeting, you guys will discuss whether or not you want to proceed with the board staff having to draft up potential bylaws. If you guys approve that, then they can go ahead and proceed with drafting the actual bylaws for presentation at a future.
Okay.
And we'll-
Okay. Okay, I think that's
Okay.
it. Any more discussion from any other board members or any other staff? Is there any other discussion? No, since there's no discussion, the time is 4:30. I would like to adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion?
This is Kai Stanton. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting for August 24th of 2020, ending the 1 o'clock meeting.
Board Member Harris, I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, meeting's adjourned.
Oh,
Bye.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.